arsenal juridique au droit international tel que préconisé par le statut de Rome, la République démocratique du Congo s'est distinguée par l'adoption des lois de mise en œuvre contenant essentiellement des modifications de certaines dispositions de son droit pénal et judiciaire. Au nombre de ces lois, je citerai notamment la loi numéro 15/022 du 31 décembre 2015 modifiant et complétant les décrets du 30 janvier 1940 portant code pénal. La loi numéro 15/023 du 31 décembre 2015 modifiant la loi numéro 024/2002 du 12 novembre 2002 portant code pénal militaire. La loi numéro 15/024 du 31 décembre 2015 modifiant et complétant les décrets du 6 août 1959 portant code de procédure pénale. Grâce à la promulgation de ces lois, la République démocratique du Congo a rempli fidèlement sa majeure obligation d'État parti au statut de Rome en se dotant ainsi de ses propres lois sur base desquelles les juridictions principalement militaires ont rendu de nombreuses décisions sur les crimes contre l'humanité et crimes de guerre en appliquant directement les statuts de Rome. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, pendant que nous sommes dans cette salle, une partie de l'Est du territoire de la République démocratique du Congo, mon pays, dans les provinces de l'Ituri et du Nord Kivu, est le théâtre des crimes contre l'humanité, des crimes de guerre, des crimes de génocide et des crimes d'agression qui occasionnent des milliers de morts ainsi que des cas de violences sexuelles sur les femmes, les filles en particulier, sans compter des déplacements massifs des populations. Pas plus tard que la semaine passée, les terrorismes du M23 ont perpétré des massacres contre plus d'une centaine de compatriotes civils non armés dans les villages de Kikiché en territoire de Rutshuru. De ce fait, je sollicite l'observation d'une minute de silence en mémoire de ces victimes, parmi lesquelles on compte les vieillards, les femmes et les enfants. Merci beaucoup. Les auteurs de ces crimes sont aujourd'hui bien identifiés par les experts des Nations Unies et opèrent même à visage découvert. Il s'agit principalement de deux groupes terroristes dont l'un est d'origine ougandaise, en l'occurrence l'ADF, et l'autre servant des supplétifs à l'armée rwandaise, le mouvement du M23 du 23 mars, mieux connu sous l'appellation du M23 par lequel le Rwanda agresse mon pays, et c'est connu de tous. Outre les violences qui écument toute la partie Est, les crimes graves sont également commis dans la partie Ouest, précisément à Kwamutu, dans la province de Mai-Ndombe. Par ma voix, mon pays, la République démocratique du Congo, en appelle à la solidarité internationale pour faire cesser l'agression dont elle est victime de la part du Rwanda et à la coopération avec la Cour pénale internationale pour que tous les criminels qui sèment la désolation sur son territoire soient traqués et punis. Tout en saluant l'annonce faite hier par les procureurs de visiter certains pays l'année prochaine, la République démocratique du Congo, à travers son président, son Excellence Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, me charge de demander au procureur de commencer sa visite par mon pays, vu qu'il y a péril en demeure. Cette visite lui permettra de se rendre compte du désastre humain causé par les différents criminels terroristes précités aux populations vivant dans les provinces de l'Ituri et du Nord Kivu et n'hésitera pas à se saisir de tous les auteurs, co-auteurs et complices de tous les crimes graves pour que leur comportement qui porte atteinte à la mémoire collective de l'humanité soit réprimé afin que tout le monde dise plus jamais ça. Par ailleurs, face à l'agression de mon pays, face à l'agression dont mon pays est victime de la part du Rwanda, je suis convaincu qu'il bénéficiera de la même compassion dont témoigne la communauté internationale à l'égard de l'Ukraine. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est donc sur ces cris de détresse que je clôt mon propos. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Je remercie Madame la ministre d'État et le ministre de la Justice. Et on va maintenant au vice-président du Conseil des ministres et ministre des Affaires étrangères et de la coopération naturelle, coopération de l'Italie, M. Antonio Tajani, qui va nous joindre par moyen de vidéo.
Madam President, I am honored to address the Assembly of States Parties of the International Criminal Court on behalf of the Italian government. On the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute, Italy reaffirms its strong support for the International Criminal Court. The court is key in the fight against impunity for the most serious crimes. Today, as basic rules of the international order are disregarded, its role is more crucial than ever. The court helps repair the harm suffered by victims and communities. It helps prevent crimes. It contributes to create the conditions for sustainable peace. Over the past year, the court has made important progress in many investigations and proceedings. At the same time, there are still challenges that we need to address. First, universality. An effective criminal justice system with the court at its center depends on its universality. For this reason, we call on states to ratify the Rome Statute. Second, cooperation. The court still faces obstacles in fulfilling its mandate. We call on state parties to respect their obligation to cooperate fully with the court. Italy will continue to do its part in full respect of the independence and impartiality of the court. We recently reaffirmed the Kampala amendments, which reinforce the capacity of the Rome Statute system to promote accountability, including for the crime of aggression. We are also providing an exceptional voluntary contribution to assist the court's investigations. With regard to Ukraine, Italy, together with more than 40 states, has decided to refer it to the court prosecutor, following Russia's war of aggression. Madam President, the International Criminal Court is a reason for hope and justice for all the victims of atrocious crimes across the world. We cannot fail their expectations. We can count on Italy in this endeavor. I thank you and wish you all a fruitful session.
I thank Minister Tajani for his speech, and now turn to the State Secretary, the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Slovenia, Mr. Marko Stucin, who's with us.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to address the Assembly of States Parties on behalf of the Republic of Slovenia in order to express its unwavering support for the International Criminal Court. Slovenia fully aligns with a statement delivered by the Czech Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The International Criminal Court, which is this year celebrating its 20th anniversary, was created to combat impunity by holding responsible the perpetrators of the gravest crimes. Since its establishment, the ICC has set important milestones in the field of international criminal justice and proved to be a vital tool in the global fight against impunity. The war in Ukraine is yet another difficult trail that the court has had to face in recent years. We commend the ICC's response to the current crisis in Ukraine and its continued presence on the ground. The past year has also been marked by a stark increase in the court's caseload. To ensure its continued smooth operation, states parties must ensure adequate and sustainable financing as well as paying their contributions in full. In this respect, Slovenia believes that the CBF recommendations on the proposed program budget are well-founded and adequately address the financial needs of the court. Moreover, it is important to recognize the complex role of the Permanent International Criminal Court in prosecuting high-ranking individuals, which calls for reasonable expectations regarding the court's capacities in fulfilling its mandate. With regard to ensuring the efficiency of the court's functioning, it is important to highlight the role of the court's registrar and stress the importance of electing the most qualified candidate for this position. Allow me to pay tribute to Mr. Peter Lewis for his excellent work and leadership of the registry in one of the most challenging periods since the court's establishment. It is now more crucial than ever that states assist the court in prosecuting serious international crimes through cooperation by offering their political and financial support, as well as by ensuring the execution of outstanding warrants. Furthermore, we would like to call on the UN Security Council to enhance its role in the fight against impunity by refraining from using the right of veto in cases of mass atrocities and using its right of referral as appropriate. Slovenia strongly supports the court's victim-centered approach by regularly contributing to the Trust Fund for Victims, whose role is to make justice meaningful for victims. Finally, we call on all states to support the court's important mission and achieve our ultimate goal. This is the universality ratification of the Rome Statute. Excellencies, on this occasion, Slovenia would like to present the candidacy of Betty Hochler of the post for the ICC judge at the elections next year. We are convinced that her outstanding experience in the field of international criminal law will greatly contribute to the exercise of the ICC's mandate. To enhance the effective implementation of the principle of complementarity, Slovenia, Argentina, Belgium, the Netherlands, Mongolia and Senegal are actively working towards the adoption of a new international instrument on mutual legal assistance and extradition between states for the crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes and other international crimes, known as the MLA initiative. 77 states from all regions have already expressed their support for the initiative, and we call on others to follow suit and join the diplomatic conference for the adoption of the new convention in May 2023 in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Excellencies, today we find ourselves in the middle of an extremely important period for the future functioning of the court. When the ICC prosecutor took office, he reminded the international community that the ICC is owned by humanity. It's not of the West or of the East. It is not of the global North or of the South. It belongs to each and every one of us. It is up to the international communities as whole to ensure that there is no place for atrocity crimes. Thank you.
Thank the State Secretary. Now turn to His Excellency Jackson Karugaba Katuzi, the Deputy Attorney General of Uganda.
The President of the Assembly of States, State Parties, heads of delegations of representatives of state parties, judges of the International Criminal Court, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, officers of the International Criminal Court, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Madam President, on behalf of my country, I take this opportunity to salute you for the excellent manner in which you have steered the business of this Assembly since your election and to assure you of my country's support and cooperation in all your work. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Peter Lewis on completing his successful term as Registrar of the ICC. As a country, we are cognizant of the contributions of Mr. Peter Lewis to the ICC and would want to ensure that his achievements are sustained. In this regard, Madam President, Uganda has fielded a highly competent, efficient, and experienced female candidate who we are confident will build on Peter Lewis's legacy, especially in reinforcing, bridging the gender gap and geographical diversity gaps in the recruitment of senior staff at the court and taking justice closer to the affected communities and building partnerships with state parties, civil society, and all stakeholders. I believe that every state party will agree with me that the time to end the 20-year reign of one geographical region holding the office of the registrar is now. A registrar who is familiar and has experience working with a geographical region where all the cases before the court are based is what we need. It is time for an African registrar. Madam President, allow me to reiterate to this Assembly Uganda's unwavering commitment to the fight against impunity within its borders and beyond. As we have previously done, we wish to remind this Assembly that Uganda was the first state in January 2004 to make a referral to the International Criminal Court following the coming into force or existence of the court less than 2 years before, in 2002. Uganda has continued to contribute to the work of the court when called upon, and we will continue to do more to meet our obligations. Madam President, in keeping with the promise to keep the victims at the core of the court's mandate, Uganda hosted the second monitoring visit to northern Uganda last October. We are grateful for the initiative taken by the Irish government to organize this visit to Uganda and for the support from the governments of Belgium, Estonia, Liechtenstein, New Zealand, and the Trust Fund for Victims. They facilitated this important mission that enabled the exploration of how assistance is rendered to the victims and made recommendations on lessons learned from the Northern Uganda experience, which we hope we will have an opportunity to deliberate upon at the side event today. This last monitoring visit attracted not only state parties, but also observers from non-state parties who we believe are keen on working with us to ensure that justice for victims of the Rome Statute crimes is granted. Uganda welcomes the recent request from the prosecutor to hold a hearing on confirmation of charges against Joseph Kony, the leader of the LRA, Lord's Resistance Army, in his absence. If granted, this long overdue opportunity will kickstart advancing the cause of justice for the thousands of victims who have waited for 3 decades to see this happen. It would be a little glimmer of hope. Uganda will, as we have done the last 2 decades, work closely with the court in performing its mandate both within the country and elsewhere on the African continent. We hope to remain reliable, committed partners to the court in the pursuit of its mandate. We welcome the setting of the date for the delivery of the appeals judgment in the case of Dominic Ongwen on 15th December. It is our hope that this historic trial judgment will affirm will be confirmed so that the victims can move on the reparations phase. We appeal to state parties to consider increasing resources to support the work of the Trust Fund for victims so that we can make justice available and meaningful. Madam President, international justice is costly. As state parties, we are continually asking for more of the court without matching these demands with commensurate growth in the budget. We call upon the Assembly to commit to the court's global mandate by providing the court with financial, political, and practical support. No victims of the Rome Statute crimes should be left feeling secondary to others, and this should be reflected in the way that we respond to all catastrophic situations as long as our mandate permits the court to intervene. Uganda will continue to work towards strengthening partnerships with state parties, civil society, and appropriate offices of the court and the Rome Statute mechanisms that spearhead work with victims and witnesses. Madam President, my government reiterates its support to the independent expert review report and looks forward to reflecting on the progress made on implementation of the recommendations, especially those recommendations that required drastic action, such as addressing gender parity and geographical diversity gaps in high levels positions and improving efficiency in the court and dealing with the predatory behavior at the court. The disproportionate representation in high-level positions from other regions but Africa is a major concern to us all. The statistics received this November indicate that there is no female at the director level and likewise no African at that level. This should concern all of us and it needs to be addressed. Allow me to conclude by reiterating my country's keenness on continued close relationship with the court and by wishing everyone here great deliberations in the days to follow. Thank you very much.
I thank the Deputy Attorney General and would now call upon the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Costa Rica, also by video.
Señora Presidenta, Excelencias, señores delegados, señoras delegadas, en épocas de grandes desafíos para la comunidad internacional, la necesidad de la Corte Penal Internacional es más evidente y apremiante que nunca. Hoy por hoy constatamos la importancia de tener la seguridad y la confianza de que se puede contar con un organismo judicial independiente e imparcial para que los peores crímenes internacionales, como el genocidio, los crímenes de lesa humanidad, los crímenes de guerra y el crimen de agresión, no queden impunes. Costa Rica ha tenido como una constante de su política exterior un inquebrantable compromiso con la justicia penal internacional, la integridad del Estatuto de Roma y la salvaguardia de la independencia judicial de la Corte Penal Internacional. Este compromiso pasa por una clara voluntad de contribuir con las mejoras que la Corte requiere. Por ello, mi país ha apoyado desde su inicio el proceso de revisión de la Corte y ve con satisfacción los avances registrados en el marco del mecanismo de revisión, así como por medio de los distintos grupos de trabajo, facilitaciones y puntos focales. Desde La Haya y Nueva York, Costa Rica participa activamente como facilitador de 2 grupos de trabajo con el objetivo de contribuir, junto con los demás estados parte, al fortalecimiento del sistema de justicia penal internacional y la lucha contra la impunidad. Por otro lado, la cooperación de los estados partes y de la sociedad civil con la Corte es fundamental para cumplir con su mandato, por lo que estamos llamados a multiplicar esfuerzos para brindar cooperación que la Corte requiere. En materia financiera, Costa Rica alienta a la Corte a continuar abocándose a atender sus desafíos internos para lograr una mejora continua de la eficiencia y la efectividad en su operación. Resulta claro que debemos encontrar soluciones para garantizar que las operaciones de la Corte no se vean debilitadas y en este sentido Costa Rica apoya que se dote a la Corte de los recursos suficientes para su adecuado financiamiento. La eficacia de la lucha contra la impunidad depende muy claramente de la capacidad de la Corte para cumplir su mandato. A pesar de que muchísimos países, incluyendo Costa Rica, enfrentan actualmente grandes dificultades financieras, debemos estar conscientes de que sin recursos estables, predecibles y suficientes para la Corte, la comunidad internacional pone en riesgo su principal herramienta para prevenir y reprimir atrocidades. Esta Asamblea de Estados parte, por lo tanto, representa una oportunidad única para evaluar con seriedad la discordancia que existe entre la alta carga de trabajo y los recursos con que cuenta la Corte. Costa Rica llama, por ello, a adoptar un presupuesto que sea congruente con todas las dependencias que conforman la Corte Penal Internacional, bajo el principio de una sola Corte. En este sentido, resaltamos el valioso trabajo desplegado por el Comité sobre Presupuesto y Finanzas, cuyo análisis y recomendaciones han servido de guía para las ricas discusiones que se han desarrollado alrededor de este tema. Habida cuenta de la trascendencia de este comité, Costa Rica ha propuesto incorporarse al mismo a partir del 1 de enero 2023. Señora Presidenta, esta Asamblea nos da también la oportunidad de desarrollar una estrategia que contemple mecanismos para mejorar la arquitectura de colaboración con la Corte Penal Internacional y que, al mismo tiempo, nos conduzca hacia la universalización del Estatuto de Roma. Ello requiere enfrentar con firmeza las amenazas y ataques que reciben en diferentes partes del mundo las organizaciones de la sociedad civil y defensores de los derechos humanos que cooperan con la Corte Penal Internacional. Cooperar con la Corte no deberá nunca poner en peligro la vida de personas que buscan la justicia y el respeto de los derechos y libertades fundamentales de los demás. Finalmente, debemos recordar que los estados tienen una obligación especial con las víctimas, especialmente con las más vulnerables, a las cuales el Estatuto de Roma confiere un papel central. Por ello, debemos reforzar las actividades de asistencia a las víctimas de violencia sexual y la rehabilitación de quienes han sufrido traumas físicos y psicológicos. Es precisamente por las víctimas que debemos continuar todos nuestros esfuerzos, porque la justicia importa y debemos seguir promoviendo juntos los valores del Estatuto de Roma de manera firme, coherente y respetuosa para lograr su universalidad. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. We now turn to the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Latvia, Mr. Andris Pelts, who is joining us on video.
Madam President, at the outset, I would like to thank the President of the Assembly, the President of the Court, the prosecutor, and the deputy prosecutors elected during the last session of the Assembly, and express my appreciation on the important work during the last year. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute, I would like to reaffirm Latvia's unwavering support for the International Criminal Court to ensure international criminal justice. Madam President, Latvia fully aligns itself with the statement delivered on behalf of the European Union and its member states, and would like to highlight the following in its national capacity. Latvia highly values the international legal order that guarantees international peace and security, and acknowledges the importance of the international criminal law to fight impunity. Being state party to the Rome Statute for more than 20 years, we continue to strongly believe in international criminal justice. It is significant to remember that it cannot be maintained by the court alone, but also requires strong support from the state parties. War crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and crime of aggression are the gravest crimes recognized by international society. And impunity for the commission of such crimes is unacceptable. Therefore, accountability for such crimes is the prerequisite for international justice. Currently, we are witnessing the most serious crimes of international concern taking place in Ukraine, whose unimaginable consequences horrify the international community. Investigation opened by the prosecutor regarding alleged atrocity crimes in Ukraine proves the court's commitment to ensure rules-based international order. Regrettably, the court is unable to exercise jurisdiction over the crime of aggression committed against Ukraine. To prevent impunity, this accountability gap must be closed, and we believe that an ad hoc special tribunal would be the most appropriate tool to complement the jurisdiction of the court. Madam President, it must be outlined that for the proper and efficient functioning of the International Criminal Court, regular allocation of appropriate resources from all the state parties is essential. In order for the court to fulfill its objectives, we encourage state parties to continue to provide necessary financial resources and to pay their annual contributions. Acknowledging the importance of the work done by the court, Latvia has provided financial support as well as sent experts to assist the ongoing investigations. Further, Latvia is honored to work side by side with the court in joint investigation team which seeks to enhance judicial cooperation among the competent authorities involved in the investigation and prosecution of core international crimes perpetrated in Ukraine. Recalling that the work of the court is complementary to the national justice systems, Latvian competent institutions have initiated criminal investigations based on universal jurisdiction to prosecute war crimes and crimes against humanity. Latvia firmly believes that investigations in national capacity may strengthen the court's effort to ensure accountability. Madam President, the international community has a shared responsibility to maintain justice and to prevent impunity. On that account, Latvia encourages all the member states to continue to strengthen the Rome Statute system and calls upon non-member states to ratify the Rome Statute and its Kampala amendments on the crime of aggression. Thank you.
Thank the State Secretary. Now give the floor to the Ambassador of Mexico to the Netherlands. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Señor Vicepresidente, distinguidos jueces, jueces y funcionarios de la Corte Penal Internacional, estimados delegados y representantes de la sociedad civil. Distinguido embajador Ray, México aprecia su presencia hoy en La Haya y reconoce su contribución a los trabajos de la Corte Penal Internacional desde Nueva York. México desea expresar su amplio reconocimiento a todos los órganos de la Corte Penal Internacional por su profesionalismo y eficaz labor en el cumplimiento de su mandato. Mi país reconoce que su capacidad y experiencia han sido fundamentales para cumplir con sus responsabilidades bajo circunstancias extraordinarias, una vez más en el presente año. Uno de los retos más significativos ha sido el conflicto en Ucrania, en donde, por desgracia, el mandato de esta Corte ha sido puesto a prueba. 43 estados parte del Estatuto de Roma refirieron la situación de Ucrania al fiscal de la Corte Penal Internacional, quien preparaba ya una investigación con base en sus propias atribuciones. Al igual que lo hemos hecho en todos los foros, México condena hoy aquí, una vez más y con la misma energía, la agresión de la Federación de Rusia a Ucrania. Este conflicto armado nos ha mostrado nuevamente los horrores y atrocidades de la guerra, incluyendo la muerte de miles de civiles en territorio ucraniano y las denuncias sobre incidentes de violencia sexual registrados en contra de mujeres y niñas. Estos crímenes deben ser investigados y no pueden ni deben quedar impunes. Debemos continuar promoviendo la justicia internacional y apoyamos al fiscal Karim Khan en su investigación independiente e imparcial sobre las violaciones graves que se hubieran cometido o pudieran llegar a cometerse por cualquiera de las partes involucradas en el conflicto. Sus hallazgos serán determinantes para lograr una impartición de justicia a las víctimas de esta agresión. Esta lamentable situación en territorio ucraniano es una muestra más de que la Corte Penal Internacional es esencial para fortalecer la convivencia internacional y el Estado de Derecho. Y nos recuerda la necesidad de alcanzar la universalidad del sistema del Estatuto de Roma para ampliar el alcance de la justicia internacional. En este sentido, invitamos a Ucrania y a aquellos países que aún no lo han hecho a ratificar o adherirse al Estatuto a fin de que se investiguen y juzguen los crímenes previstos en dicho instrumento jurídico. En este sentido, deseamos compartir que el Senado mexicano ha adoptado las enmiendas al artículo 8 del Estatuto de Roma y próximamente esperamos estar depositando el instrumento de ratificación correspondiente. Estimados delegados, la situación de Ucrania ha generado cargas de trabajo adicionales para la Corte y especialmente para la Fiscalía. La actual crisis económica mundial y la alta inflación que ha impactado en particular a la energía y a los alimentos ha colocado a los Estados parte en serias dificultades económicas para proveer a la Corte de los recursos suficientes para atender el número que se ha incrementado de investigaciones y situaciones que está obligada a atender. México, como otros Estados parte, tiene el compromiso y la convicción de fortalecer a la Corte Penal Internacional y hará todos los esfuerzos necesarios para atender la demanda de recursos que plantean los órganos de la Corte. Sin embargo, es claro que impera una realidad en la que todos debemos hacer compromisos adicionales y hacer más con los recursos posibles que nunca serán los ideales. No debemos olvidar que la Corte Penal Internacional es un tribunal de última instancia para juzgar los crímenes de genocidio, de lesa humanidad, de guerra y de agresión. Por lo tanto, la responsabilidad primaria de investigar y enjuiciar a los autores de crímenes atroces y evitar la impunidad es de los propios Estados, lo cual ayudaría a que los recursos aprobados para la Corte se enfoquen en aquellas situaciones donde no se tenga la capacidad o no estén dispuestas las autoridades nacionales a cumplir con esas obligaciones. En ese sentido, nos parece muy adecuado que el fiscal Khan esté actuando en apego al principio de complementariedad establecido en el Estatuto de Roma. Tampoco debemos dejar de lado a las víctimas y a las comunidades afectadas, quienes tienen derecho a acceder a la justicia de forma expedita, eficiente y equitativa. Estas deben tener la certeza de que la comunidad internacional, a través del Fondo Fiduciario en beneficio de las víctimas, las apoya a fin de que puedan reconstruir sus vidas a través de los programas de reparación. Señor Vicepresidente, México ve con buenos ojos que se continúe avanzando en las evaluaciones de las recomendaciones del Grupo de Expertos Independientes y en su implementación. Asimismo, deseamos reconocer el interés, el esfuerzo y el trabajo realizado por el presidente de la Corte, el juez Piotr Hofmansky, el fiscal Karim Khan y el secretario Peter Lewis como principales actores de la Corte en este proceso de revisión. Sabemos que esto implica una carga de trabajo adicional para ellos y sus equipos. No cabe duda que al implementar diversas recomendaciones, como las relativas a la cultura laboral, a la estrategia para enfrentar y aplicar la política de cero tolerancia contra la intimidación, el acoso y el acoso sexual, así como la igualdad de género, la inclusión y la representación geográfica dentro de la Corte, se coadyuvará a mejorar el ambiente laboral al interior de la misma y esperamos que ese clima de miedo que aún persiste entre el personal desaparezca en un futuro cercano. Es de suma importancia que la Corte haga mayores esfuerzos para que su plantilla de personal alcance un equilibrio de género, una distribución geográfica equitativa y una representación adecuada de los principales sistemas jurídicos del mundo. Hacemos un llamado a los Estados parte a intensificar la cooperación con la Corte para cumplir plenamente con el mandato del Estatuto de Roma, incluyendo coadyuvar en la ejecución de las 15 órdenes de detención emitidas que aún no se han logrado cumplimentar. Distinguidos delegados, México reitera su inquebrantable apoyo a la Corte Penal Internacional y en 2023 continuaremos colaborando en la mesa de la Asamblea, en los grupos de trabajo de La Haya y Nueva York y en las facilitaciones, incluyendo el grupo de trabajo de enmiendas que México tiene el honor de presidir. Además, seguiremos participando en la evaluación de las recomendaciones del grupo de expertos independientes de una manera transparente, inclusiva, buscando siempre construir consensos y respetando la independencia judicial y procesal. No quisiera concluir sin antes reiterar que tras 20 años desde la entrada en vigor del Estatuto de Roma, la Corte Penal Internacional es una institución sólida, imparcial e independiente, dedicada a investigar y enjuiciar a los responsables de cometer genocidio y crímenes de guerra, de lesa humanidad y de agresión. En ese sentido, la única forma de terminar con la impunidad de estos crímenes atroces es mediante la universalidad del Estatuto y de la cooperación de la comunidad internacional en su conjunto.
I thank the distinguished representative of Mexico. I now turn the floor to the ambassador of El Salvador to the Netherlands.
Señor Presidenta, señor Vicepresidente, señores delegados, El Salvador, ante todo, desea felicitar a la señora Presidenta, doña Silvia Fernández de Curmendi, por dirigir nuestras labores durante esta Asamblea. Asimismo, hacemos extensivo nuestras felicitaciones a los vicepresidentes y miembros de la mesa. El Salvador reitera su compromiso de seguir buscando el fortalecimiento de la Corte y universalidad del Estatuto de Roma. Nos congratulamos de poder contar con 2 fiscales adjuntos electos desde la 20ª Asamblea de Estados Partes. Y así hemos acompañado el proceso de reestructuración de la oficina del señor fiscal Karim Khan, convencidos de que se logrará agilizar la investigación durante la fase de examen preliminar, así como ahondar en el conocimiento de los contextos nacionales y acelerar los procesos en las distintas cámaras de la Corte. Mi país, El Salvador, está comprometido con las iniciativas tendientes a alcanzar la universalidad del Estatuto de Roma, por cuanto apoyamos la coordinación interinstitucional y acercamiento que propicie nuevas adhesiones al Estatuto. La ratificación universal es necesaria para prevenir y poner coto a la impunidad de los perpetradores de violaciones del derecho internacional. El ejercicio del principio de complementariedad en las jurisdicciones penales nacionales contribuye ciertamente a luchar contra la impunidad. Invitamos a la Secretaría a proseguir apoyando a los Estados partes como centro de acopio de la información en el derecho penal internacional y traslado de buenas prácticas para nuestros países. En este sentido, la asistencia a los Estados parte para permitirles profundizar en conocimiento del Estatuto, así como en lo relativo a los logros y desafíos de la Corte, podrá propiciar una participación más activa de los Estados parte en el mecanismo de revisión, entre otros, y en los diferentes procesos de elección de cargos. Después de casi un año de la evaluación de las recomendaciones de los expertos independientes, nos corresponde a los Estados partes pasar a la fase de implementación de las mismas para diseñar la reestructuración del futuro de la Corte, teniendo en cuenta las nuevas realidades y necesidades de mejora que han sido identificadas. La Corte, lo sabemos, es la instancia penal por excelencia para promover el respeto del derecho penal internacional y el Estado de Derecho, así como el derecho internacional humanitario y derechos humanos. No hemos de olvidar asimismo la contribución de esta Corte en la consolidación de la paz y seguridad internacional, principios fundamentales de la Carta de Naciones Unidas. El Salvador se pronuncia en favor de la colaboración brindada por Naciones Unidas a la Oficina del Secretario de la Corte Penal Internacional en lo referente a aquellas peticiones de los abogados de la defensa y de víctimas. Naciones Unidas aporta asimismo una contribución importante a los distintos actores durante los procesos judiciales. Ello nos lleva a abogar una vez más por una cooperación cada vez más estrecha y eficiente, cumpliendo con el espíritu del acuerdo de relación suscrito por la Corte y Naciones Unidas. Señor Vicepresidente, agradecemos la confianza depositada por la Asamblea de los Estados Partes y por nuestra región GRULAC en mi país al permitirnos ejercer la facilitación sobre la asistencia letrada, cuyo objetivo, de conformidad al mandato recibido, es coadyuvar a formular una nueva política de asistencia letrada que sea accesible, eficiente, sostenible y creíble. Agradecemos en este momento, de manera particular, la excelente colaboración que hemos recibido por parte del secretario, el señor Peter Luis, al respecto. Sin embargo, que me sea permitido desde esta tribuna y como facilitadora de la política de asistencia letrada, hacer un llamado para que los Estados partes, conjuntamente con el secretario de la Corte, construyamos una solución razonable, equitativa y viable dentro del presupuesto acordado en favor de los abogados y sus equipos de apoyo a la defensa. Esta Corte no debe seguir otros 10 años sin definir dentro del presupuesto asignado a la oficina del secretario con esta situación. ¿Cuál puede ser la solución ante las insistentes demandas de los equipos de la defensa? Es nuestro reto. Son tiempos difíciles, ciertamente, para muchos, pero no olvidemos que detrás de las cifras hay circunstancias humanas afectadas entre quienes desde la defensa letrada trabajan por esta Corte. Señor Vicepresidente, en el próximo año los magistrados habrán de elegir a un nuevo secretario y desde nuestra perspectiva, el secretario es un actor importantísimo en la ejecución de los derechos, obligaciones y procedimientos administrativos contenidos en el Estatuto de Roma. Esperamos poder tener una participación activa con el futuro secretario. Consideramos asimismo necesario mejorar el proceso de postulación de candidaturas para ocupar cargos de la Corte, sobre todo procedente de regiones que están menos representadas. El Salvador, al igual que otros países, concretamente de la región GRULAC, considera conveniente que los Estados partes emitan ciertas valoraciones en cuanto a la idoneidad de los candidatos para secretario. Se cumple de alguna manera así el espíritu del Estatuto de Roma, el cual insta a los Estados miembros a emitir recomendaciones para consideración de los jueces, ante los jueces. Deseamos hacer hincapié en el hecho de que para cumplir con las expectativas de numerosos Estados parte, la Corte debe reflejar en sus estructuras un mayor balance de género, así como de representatividad geográfica y de los sistemas legales. Para concluir, señor Vicepresidente, permítame agregar que El Salvador ha participado en el diálogo constructivo sobre la propuesta del presupuesto de la Corte para el año 2023, el cual está todavía en proceso de ser adoptado. Mi país es consciente de las actuales circunstancias que dificultan en cierto modo el futuro cumplimiento de algunos de los objetivos de la organización. Y si bien El Salvador tiene toda la voluntad política de poder ayudar a la Corte Internacional en el cumplimiento de su mandato, no puede, sin embargo, aportar recursos adicionales. Hemos hecho un esfuerzo para estar hoy al día en nuestras contribuciones y así esperamos siga siendo en el futuro. Gracias, señor Vicepresidente.
I thank the distinguished representative of El Salvador and now give the floor to the ambassador of Bulgaria to the Netherlands.
Mr. Vice President, distinguished members of the Court, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Republic of Bulgaria fully aligns itself with the statement made by the distinguished representative of the Czech Republic on behalf of the European Union and its member states. Now, I'd like to make some remarks in my national capacity. By its very creation as the first permanent international criminal court, a historical step was made toward the elimination of the impunity by bringing those responsible for the most serious international crimes to justice. The independent and empowered ICC is essential for justice and accountability, especially during times when it's most needed. We would therefore wish to voice a strong support for the independence and integrity of the court. The ICC is facing today an unprecedented workload due to ongoing investigations in many regions of the world, including Europe. This factor, together with the worldwide inflationary pressures, reflect on one of our central priorities: safeguarding the efficient functioning of the ICC on the basis of a stable and target-oriented budgeting process. In this context, we'd like to commend the efforts made by the budget facilitators based upon the wide-ranging recommendations of the Committee on Budget and Finance, aimed at identifying proper mechanisms for realizing savings in the proposed budget for 2023, while maintaining the court's capacity to perform in light of the increase in its workload. Along this line, we call upon all state parties to abide by their commitments to uphold the Rome Statute system by addressing the acute and persistent liquidity issues through timely payment of their annual contributions. With regard to the request of the Office of the Prosecutor for financial support, in March this year, Bulgaria made a voluntary contribution to the newly established trust fund in the amount of €50,000. We also acknowledge the role of the Trust Fund for Victims, especially evident in the crucially significant field of reparative justice for the victims and their families. Therefore, Bulgaria has started the interagency coordination process for making a financial contribution to the Trust Fund through one of the programs in progress. We would like to take the opportunity to also congratulate the Registrar, Mr. Peter Lewis, in his dedicated work, leadership, and professionalism. Mr. Vice President, we are concerned about the gravity posed by the impunity to the stability and security of societies, undermining the institutions and values of democracy and justice, and jeopardizing sustainable development and the rule of law. Preventing and combating impunity at all levels and forms should be a priority and responsibility of all states. Bulgaria shares the view that the promotion of universality of the Rome Statute is indispensable for the work and the development of the courts. We believe that efforts in this direction will contribute to accountability, justice, and peace worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank the Ambassador of Bulgaria, and now would ask the Ambassador of Ireland to the Netherlands to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ireland associates itself with the statement made on behalf of the European Union and its member states. At the outset, I wish to express my gratitude to you, Mr. Vice President, Madam President as well, and to members of the Bureau for their dedicated work throughout the year. I also wish to thank the President of the Court, the Prosecutor and Deputy Prosecutors for their tireless efforts in pursuing justice over the last 12 months. Special thanks must also be offered to Peter Lewis, who joins us for his final ASP in his capacity as Registrar. Throughout his 5 years at the helm of the Registry, he's been a welcome force of stability and professionalism through challenging times. We are grateful for his exemplary service. Vice President, this was a significant year for the Court in many ways. It marked the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute, which commenced the ICC's operations. Such a milestone inevitably prompts a period of reflection and renewal. Furthermore, as the year unfolded, it has also proven to be a time of great action and activity. The court is now facing its busiest period ever in terms of its investigative and judicial workload. While this increased activity highlights the importance of the court's mission and its growing prominence, it also presents challenges. The illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine has shone a spotlight on the operations of the ICC and renewed efforts for international criminal justice more broadly. It is important that we capitalise on this momentum to demonstrate and ensure the court's capacity to deliver real justice for all the victims of atrocities and crimes in all country situations of which the court is seized. Vice President, we must not forget that it was the cries of victims across the globe that spurred us to establish this court. Victims are at the heart of the Rome Statute and the reparative justice system established by it. Ireland considers the Trust Fund for Victims essential to making the court's justice a reality for victims, their families and affected communities. I personally witnessed the real difference that the Trust Fund's activities make and the transformative impact of this work last September, when in close cooperation with the Government of Uganda and the Trust Fund, Ireland organised a visit with a delegation of 13 states and the EU to monitor the work of the Trust Fund in northern Uganda. We encourage all states who have not done so to consider contributing to the Trust Fund. In that vein, I am pleased to announce that Ireland has agreed a 3-year grant to the Trust Fund of €1.5 million. This grant is part of a €3 million voluntary contribution to the ICC that Ireland announced in April of this year. €1 million of this funding was immediately transferred to the Office of the Prosecutor, and I am pleased to say that the remaining €500,000 will be dispersed among the Special Fund for Relocation, the Trust Fund for the Development of Interns and Visiting Professionals, and the Trust Fund for Family Visits before the end of this year. Vice President, while Ireland made a necessary contribution to meet an urgent need, voluntary contributions are not, and I repeat, not a sustainable means of funding the court. Reliance on additional funding from a select group of states can fuel accusations of bias in international law. Ireland strongly encourages states party to agree a budget that enables the court to rise to the challenges before it and deliver on the goals that we, as states parties, have collectively bestowed upon it. We must reflect carefully now on the central role we have given the ICC in ensuring accountability for the most serious of crimes and the necessity of ensuring that the court is properly funded to achieve this objective. As well as setting a sufficient and sustainable budget, it is also essential that states parties pay their assessed contributions in a timely manner. Ireland is deeply concerned at the level of arrears and outstanding contributions. For the third time in a row, this issue has threatened the ability of the court to meet its financial obligations. This is a major challenge to the court's operations. Vice President, states parties are united by their mission to end impunity for the world's most serious international crimes. We therefore have an obligation to support the independence of the ICC when it is challenged by those who are threatened by this. This includes defending not only the court and its officials, but also those who cooperate with the court. In this regard, we're concerned by reports of threats and intimidation directed at some civil society organisations cooperating with the ICC. We welcome the Bureau's adoption of a strategy for responding to attacks on the court and look forward to updates on implementation. Vice President, states parties continue to revitalise and reaffirm their commitment to the Rome Statute system to assessing and implementing the recommendations of the independent expert review. Ireland fully supports this process and commends the steps taken so far. The values of the court, the values of justice and accountability are universal. Preventing and actively fighting impunity for perpetrators of unimaginable atrocities that shock the conscience of the humanity requires all states to come together to build a truly international system of criminal justice. We therefore call upon all states that have not done so to ratify the Rome Statute. Victims deserve no less. Thank you.
Thank the Ambassador from Ireland. And I now call on the Ambassador of Brazil to the Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, principals of the court, ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. Being a proud founding member of the International Criminal Court, Brazil remains as committed to the system established by the Rome Statute as it was more than 20 years ago, when the statute became officially part of our internal legal corpus. There is good reason for our long-standing, lasting commitment. We believe that the values of the Rome Statute enshrines the personal responsibility of those found guilty for the most heinous crimes in fair and impartial trials, and the respect for the empowerment of victims through retributive and restorative justice remain as valid today as they were when the international community gathered in the Italian capital 25 years ago. The Rome Statute is a landmark instrument in the history of the international law and must be preserved in order to safeguard the delicate balance that underpins this institution. Brazil recognizes the new pace prosecutor Karim Kam has given to ICC investigations through the restructuring of the OTP office. We praise his ability to protect the office under his responsibility from the threat of politicization when pressures were there and high. We also commend the judiciary for the 3 simultaneous hearings scheduled for the next year. This is a clear sign that the ICC is effectively delivering on the tasks the international community has assigned to it. We feel reassured to witness the Register's ability to provide support for both the judiciary's hearing and the OTP's investigations. We are sorry we will soon need to bid farewell to Peter Lewis. But Peter, you have left your mark in the form of a legacy of utmost competence in the court. The skilled way in which you managed to conduct the registry will remain inspirational for your successor. Brazil has no doubt that the judges will know how to elect the most suitable candidate to live up to Peter Lewis' legacy. Of course, we recognize that the choice of the new register is a prerogative of the judges. On this important task, we want to express our recognition to the Hague Working Group's efforts to come up with a set of recommendations that might indeed be useful to the judges. We endorse the high priority assigned to the merit as well to the principle of adequate geographic representation. If we also take into account the deputy prosecutors, the only group not represented today among the principals of the court is GRULAC. The founding fathers of the ICC were wise when they established a court based on the 3 main pillars of complementarity, cooperation, and universality. Brazil believes that the ICC should be strengthened in light of how it was originally conceived. A court of last resort to which one can turn when states are unable or unwilling to take action against the most serious international crimes. Regarding cooperation, Brazil believes that strengthening the cooperation between states parties and the ICC is the only feasible way for the fulfillment of its mandate, so those responsible for the serious international crimes can be brought to justice. Moreover, the principle of universality should be relentlessly pursued, not only through the enlargement of the ICC membership, but also by striving for a fairer regional representation, both in its governance structures and its staff. As a matter of fact, fulfilling the principle of adequate geographic representation, while essential, remains a challenge to keep a court that is representative, diverse, and just. On that vein, we will certainly have to revisit the composition of the Bureau of the Assembly of the States Parties. for it does not reflect GRULAC's importance as the second largest regional group. The same applies to the selection and hiring of new staff of the court. Brazil is still one of the least represented countries when it comes to the composition of the court staff. We need to identify the reasons for this persistence of inadequate representation, which at the end also translate into ill representation of the civil law tradition at the court, so as to envisage possible solutions. Madam President, to keep fit for purpose, the court has courageously faced several of its shortcomings through the devoted engagement to the review mechanism together with state parties. We feel reassured to see that the review mechanism is already bearing its fruits, as was shared with us during the roundtable on work culture a couple of weeks ago. This exercise has to lead to genuine change, for this is essential to keep the court fit for the challenges that there is still ahead of us. As we head to the 25th celebration of the adoption of the Rome Statute, indeed, there are still several challenges to be faced. We gladly took note of reassuring signs by some non-state members about their will to reignite their relations with the ICC. But we are still short of reaching the universality aimed for by the Rome Statute. Indeed, it's only through true universality that the ICC will be able to play its role in protecting and enhancing international justice, contributing this way to the very promotion of much-needed international peace. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
I thank the ambassador from Brazil. I would now turn to the ambassador from Denmark.
Mr. Vice President, it is a great pleasure to address this 21st Assembly of State Parties, and I can promise you, Mr. Vice President, and everyone here that this intervention will be less than 5 minutes. This year, we celebrate the ICC turning 20, and next year, we can celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Rome Statute. This is an opportunity to reflect on the achievements we have achieved so far and define our goals for the future of the court. Denmark aligns itself fully with the statement delivered by the Presidency of the European Union yesterday. The court remains a crucial part of upholding the rules-based international order and a key actor in the fight against impunity, which is as important now as it has ever been, considering the unlawful Russian act of aggression against Ukraine. In an effort to protect the values of the court, Prosecutor Khan opened an investigation into the situation in Ukraine following referral by 43 state parties of the ICC, including Denmark. We need to support the ICC in every possible way in order to see accountability for the perpetrators of the most serious international crimes. Mr. Vice President, it is our hope that dialogue-based approach and a well-managed and result-oriented court will eventually lead to universal membership of the court. As the president of the ASP has pointed out several times, the 25th anniversary of the Rome Statute next year is a great occasion for countries that have not yet ratified the Rome Statute to do so. The court must implement the recommendations from the reform process set out by the 18th Assembly of the State Parties and the subsequent important initiatives, namely better working environment for the employees of the court, increase of efficiency, streamlining of processes, and strengthening delivery and capacity. There's no alternative to reform the court if it's going to succeed in its current efforts. The Rome Statute is based on the principle of complementarity. It is important to refine the balance between national jurisdiction and the court. Denmark calls on states to adapt in national legislation based on the Rome Statute to ensure effective cooperation with the court as well as domestic prosecution of crimes under the jurisdiction of the court. Vice President, let me conclude by renewing Denmark's commitment to the court's effectiveness, independence, and integrity. The fight against impunity is as crucial now as ever. It is therefore also important that the court receives the proper funding for its many important activities in 2023 and beyond. Thank you very much.
I thank the ambassador from Denmark. I now call upon the representative of Switzerland, who is the director of the Directorate of Public International Law of the Federal Department for Foreign Affairs.
Monsieur le vice-président, la Cour est un gage d'espoir pour les générations futures qu'elle devrait protéger contre les crimes épouvantables dont leurs ancêtres ont été victimes. C'est en ces termes que Kofi Annan saluait l'avènement de la Cour pénale internationale. Nous fêtons cette année les 20 ans de l'entrée en vigueur du statut de Rome et le message d'espoir véhiculé par la Cour demeure très actuel. Les activités de la Cour ont atteint un niveau sans précédent. Les situations sous examen sont issues de toutes les régions du monde. La dernière situation en date, l'Ukraine, a placé la Cour devant des défis importants. Ces développements démontrent que la CPI répond à un véritable besoin. 20 ans après, elle est plus que jamais nécessaire. Monsieur le vice-président, l'Assemblée des États parties a un rôle essentiel à jouer pour renforcer la Cour et le système du statut de Rome. Ma délégation voudrait soulever 4 points spécifiques figurant à l'ordre du jour de cette 21e session. Le premier point que je souhaite aborder est celui du budget. La Suisse insiste sur la nécessité d'allouer des ressources suffisantes à la Cour. Il n'est pas cohérent d'attendre de la CPI qu'elle assume un rôle de premier plan dans la lutte contre l'impunité si on ne lui octroie pas les moyens financiers dont elle a besoin pour ce faire. Le budget de la Cour a été soigneusement analysé par le Comité du budget et des finances, qui est composé d'experts reconnus des États parties. Il convient donc de suivre la proposition de ce comité. Dans le même temps, nous attendons de la Cour qu'elle fasse le meilleur usage des moyens mis à sa disposition. Certes, les États parties peuvent soutenir la Cour au-delà de leur contribution au budget ordinaire. La Suisse le fait aussi, notamment en mettant des experts à disposition. J'ai le plaisir de relever que la Suisse et le bureau du procureur de la CPI ont signé le mois dernier un accord de partenariat établissant le cadre juridique pour l'envoi d'experts suisses au service de la CPI. Cet accord facilitera grandement le déploiement d'experts à l'avenir. Ces manifestations de soutien ou le versement de contributions volontaires ne sauraient toutefois se substituer au budget ordinaire de la Cour, qui doit être suffisant pour permettre de mener à bien son mandat. Accorder à la Cour un budget adéquat est la responsabilité première de cette Assemblée. Cette année, le risque existe que la négociation du budget aboutisse à un financement insuffisant. Ce serait incohérent avec les appels des États parties en faveur de l'intervention de la Cour dans des situations telles que nous la connaissons en Ukraine. Nous appelons donc toutes les délégations à faire preuve de responsabilité et à adopter un budget qui donne à la Cour des ressources nécessaires pour que les victimes aient accès à la justice qu'elles méritent. Nous sommes en outre inquiets de la crise des liquidités à laquelle la Cour est confrontée à cause d'arriérés trop importants. Cette tendance est dangereuse et ne peut continuer. Les experts indépendants ont recommandé dans leur rapport que l'Assemblée explore des moyens supplémentaires pour engager le paiement intégral et rapide des contributions par les États parties et pour maintenir des niveaux adéquats des fonds de réserve. Nous lançons un appel aux États parties qui n'ont pas encore payé leurs contributions à y remédier sans délai et à engager une réflexion sur les solutions possibles à ce problème. Mon deuxième point concerne le processus d'examen. La Suisse s'engage depuis longtemps à renforcer l'efficacité et l'efficience de la Cour. Entre 2014 et 2016, elle a mené le processus informel de Glion sur cette thématique. Nous saluons le fait que l'Assemblée ait placé l'examen de la Cour et du système de statut de Rome parmi les priorités de son agenda ces dernières années. L'exercice ne s'arrête pas avec l'examen des recommandations des experts indépendants. Il s'agit maintenant de poursuivre la mise en œuvre de ces recommandations et nous appelons toutes les parties prenantes, y compris les États parties, à s'atteler à cette tâche. Nous rappelons en outre que ce processus doit en tout temps respecter l'indépendance de la Cour. Le troisième point concerne le rôle des États parties. En plus d'assurer un financement adéquat de la Cour, tout en garantissant son indépendance, nous pouvons soutenir la CPI en remplissant nos obligations découlant du statut de Rome, à commencer par la coopération et l'exécution des nombreux mandats d'arrêt en suspens. Nous avons également la responsabilité de nommer et d'élire les personnes les plus qualifiées aux postes clés. L'année prochaine, nous élirons de nouveaux juges. Utilisons les mois à venir pour renforcer encore nos procédures de nomination et d'élection, tant au niveau national qu'au niveau de l'Assemblée. La Suisse salue en particulier les processus de vérification des candidats mis en place pour les élections du procureur adjoint et du greffier. Il s'agit maintenant d'adopter un processus de vérification permanent, applicable à toutes les élections. Enfin, la Cour a besoin d'un statut solide et d'un soutien universel. Nous invitons tous les États qui ne l'ont pas encore fait à ratifier le statut de Rome et ses amendements pertinents pour affermir l'efficacité de la justice pénale, tant au niveau national qu'international. Il est important de veiller à ce que la CPI soit en mesure de faire face aux crimes commis aujourd'hui. C'est pourquoi les États parties devraient ratifier les amendements qui ont été adoptés jusqu'ici et qui concernent les crimes de guerre et le crime d'agression. De nouvelles ratifications de ces amendements maximiseraient la protection des victimes et contribueraient à ce que le statut de Rome soit appliqué de la même manière à toutes les États parties. Cela permettrait de poursuivre tous les crimes relevant de sa compétence, peu importe le lieu où ces atrocités sont commises et peu importe leur auteur. Monsieur le vice-président, la Cour est gage d'espoir et il appartient aux États parties d'être acteurs dans la réalisation de cet espoir au profit des victimes. La crédibilité du système multilatéral est intrinsèquement liée à une reddition des comptes efficace. À nous d'être à la hauteur des enjeux en question. Merci, Monsieur le vice-président.
Je remercie beaucoup le délégué de la Suisse et je donne la parole à l'ambassadeur du Ghana.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me to convey Ghana's appreciation to you, Judge Sylvia, and other distinguished members for your excellent stewardship of the affairs of the Bureau throughout the year and the diligent work that has been done to guide the proceedings of the 21st session of the Assembly of States Parties to the Rome Statute. I assure you of the full support of my delegation for a successful conference. My appreciation also goes to the President of the Court, Judge Hofmansky, as well as the Secretariat for the excellent work done in the management of the affairs of the Court. Mr. Vice President, the preamble to the Rome Statute is a clarion call for action by the international community to end impunity for the perpetrators of heinous crimes of concern to humanity. Ghana will continue to abide and remain committed to the preamble, the values of the court, and the principles of international law, and will work in concert with the international community to ensure the effective functioning of the court for the benefit of humanity. At the entry into force of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Ghana was among 60 countries that had ratified the Rome Statute, legally creating the court on 1st July 2002. This year marked the 20th anniversary of the International Criminal Court. This milestone offered the court the opportunity to reflect over the past, present, and the future, as well as the way forward for opportunities as far as international criminal justice system is concerned. As the commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute will take place in July 2023, Ghana is hopeful that the auspicious and solemn event will enhance the visibility for the International Criminal Court while encouraging countries that are not yet state parties to accede to the statute. It is worth noting that since its inception more than 2 decades ago, the ICC has helped to deliver justice to victims around the world and to deter the gravest atrocity crimes, thereby promoting the norms of international criminal justice. While these are commendable, it should, however, be stressed that the court is still faced with challenges as international peace and security continue to be threatened by aggression and other reported incidents of armed conflicts around the world, with their attendant violations that may amount to crimes under the Rome Statute. As we encounter new challenges, what is required more than ever is for states parties and relevant stakeholders to continue to invest their efforts to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the court to better fulfill its mandate and ensure greater accountability for atrocity crimes. Mr. Vice President, with regards to Africa and the ICC, Ghana continues to advocate for dialogue and engagement in addressing the challenges the court is confronted with, and particularly the strengthening of relations between the court and African states. To this end, we commend the court, the Assembly, and its working groups for undertaking activities towards strengthening cooperation with states parties to enhance the work of the ICC. Additionally, further effort is required to advance the implementation of complementarity-related capacity-building activities to assist national jurisdictions in dealing with the most serious crimes of concern to the international community. Ghana welcomes the opening of preliminary examinations as well as investigations into several situations outside the African continent authorized by the court. This development and its visible outcomes could help dispel the perception and notion that the court unduly concentrates on Africa, since notable crimes under the statute remain international crimes regardless of the geographical region of the commission of such crimes. Mr. Vice President, Ghana welcomes the ongoing review of the ICC and the Rome Statute system, focusing on the clusters of issues of governance, judicial, as well as investigations and prosecutions, as very crucial and timely. My delegation commends the group of independent experts for their untiring efforts and timely submission of their comprehensive report. It is our hope that states parties, focal points, specialized working groups, organs of the court, and stakeholders would keep up the momentum for the effective implementation of the recommendations to ensure that the review process is successful in enhancing performance of the court and the Rome Statute. Mr. Vice President, Ghana, like other states parties, will continue to underscore the vital importance of the universality principle of the court and wish to use this platform to reiterate the call for the universal ratification of the Rome Statute by all states, such that the jurisdiction of the ICC can apply to international crimes allegedly committed by any person at anywhere. This makes education and sensitization about the Rome Statute and the ICC imperative for a better appreciation of the mandate and responsibilities of the court. Ghana also wishes to commend the efforts of the President of the Court for consistently promoting universality of the Rome Statute in various fora, and recently at the International Conference of Parliamentarians in Buenos Aires. We note with utmost satisfaction the President's call at the 12th Consultative Assembly of Parliamentarians in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in November 2022, on countries of the world to seriously consider ratifying the Rome Statute to strengthen international criminal justice as it prevents long-term violence for countries that are part of the Rome Statute. It is regrettable to note, however, that till date, the ICC has a membership of only 123 states parties. Ghana therefore aligns with every laudable effort and cause for the total universality of the Rome Statute. It is in this regard that I wish to acknowledge the support of the International Criminal Court in the activities of the Africa Center of International Criminal Justice, ACICJ, at the Gimpa Law School in Ghana. The center, which was established in May 2017, is dedicated to the promotion of international criminal law and justice in the world in Africa, in particular through research, capacity building, seminars, and advocacy. The center has already proven its worth as it has emerged as a preeminent center on legal scholarship and training in the field of international criminal justice. As indicated in my address to the August Assembly last year, steps are underway, and in fact, steps are advanced in Ghana to fully incorporate the Rome Statute in the country's domestic laws. An assurance to that effect was given by His Excellency, the President of Ghana, during his meeting with the President of the Court, Judge Hofmansky, in Accra on 28 September 2022. During the same visit, Judge Hofmansky also took time off his busy schedule to meet with the Speaker of Parliament, the Chief Justice of Ghana, and the Minister of Justice separately to discuss pertinent matters of mutual interest. Judge Hofmansky's visit also to Ghana also included a lecture during which he delivered an inspiring speech on international criminal justice at the annual public lecture organized by the African Center of International Criminal Justice. Mr. Vice President, my delegation wishes to stress the importance of ensuring fairness and equity in the recruitment of staff of the court and in representation of the various regional groups, as well as gender mainstreaming in all activities of the court. This will no doubt give equal opportunity to nationals of all states parties to bring their varied experiences and perspectives to bear at the court to enhance institutional efficiency while ensuring impartiality in the workings of the court. In conclusion, permit me to express my delegation's appreciation to the government and people of the Royal Kingdom of the Netherlands for their continued support to the court as host country and for the warm hospitality extended to members of Ghana's delegation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank the Ambassador of Ghana, and I'll give the floor to the representative from Germany, who's the Director of the International Law Federal Foreign Office. You have the floor.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to address the Assembly of States Parties on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany. We fully align ourselves with the statement made by the European Union. In our national capacity, I would like to begin by thanking you, Mr. Vice President, and the President for your work and for your excellent preparation of this Assembly. This year has been an important and challenging year for the Court. The Russian war of aggression against Ukraine represents the most blatant violation of the UN Charter that we have witnessed in Europe since the end of World War II. The ICC is currently not in a position to adjudicate the crime of aggression perpetrated by Russia against Ukraine. However, the court is called upon to investigate all the other atrocity crimes committed in the course of this war. Germany was among the 43 states that decided to transfer the situation to the ICC, which allowed Prosecutor Khan to begin his investigations immediately. As a pillar of international criminal law, the ICC has a key role to play in prosecuting war crimes and crimes against humanity perpetrated in this war. Throughout 2022, we also saw a broad display of events marking the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute. In Germany, the Nuremberg Academy dedicated a panel discussion and publication to the achievements of the ICC, as well as to the challenges that it faces, and to the court's central role in the fight against impunity. Germany has firmly supported the court in this task from the beginning. This anniversary for us is therefore also a reason for gratitude. Allow me to express my government's deep appreciation to all those who have contributed to this endeavor: the President of the Court, the Registrar, all staff members, the judges, the prosecutor, his deputies, the supporters of the court worldwide, civil society, as well as states. I would especially like to thank Registrar Peter Lewis for the tireless and excellent work that he has performed during his term since 2018. Mr. Vice President, in light of the current economic situation, we acknowledge that the court is facing financial challenges. As the court's workload continues to increase, we cannot expect it to deliver high-quality international justice without adequate capacities. I assure you that Germany will remain a steady supporter of the ICC. In March 2022, following the request by the ICC prosecutor, Germany provided substantial voluntary assistance with an additional contribution of €1 million to the OTP Trust Fund. We also seconded 8 experts to date, as well as forensic material, all of it non-earmarked and to be used to benefit all situations before the court. I would like to urge all states parties to support the court politically, but also to provide full and punctual financial support. Our contributions must safeguard the judicial independence of the court and the integrity of the Rome Statute. Germany also remains fully committed to improving the court and its mechanisms. We support the ongoing review process, which provides the court and us with the prospect of acting even more effectively and more efficiently. Mr. Vice President, in October, the Nuremberg Academy organized its annual Nuremberg Forum. It was once again held at the historic Courtroom 600 of the Palace of Justice in Nuremberg. We had the pleasure to welcome the President of the Assembly, a broad range of experts, scholars, practitioners from all over the world, including former prosecutors Luis Moreno Ocampo and Fatou Bensouda. The in-depth discussion focused and examined the ICC as a court in practice, with more than the 30 cases that have been before the court. In this context, I would like to inform all states parties that Germany is presenting the candidature of Judge Dr. Ute Hohoff for the position of judge at the ICC for the term starting in 2024. She is a judge in the criminal division of the German Federal Court of Justice. She is currently responsible for proceedings pursuant to the German Code of Crimes against International Law. As an experienced practitioner of high-level complex cases in Germany, we are firmly convinced that she could make an excellent contribution to the efficient work of the court in the future. I'm very glad that Judge Hohoff is part of Germany's delegation at this assembly. She will actively participate in our side event on accountability for conflict-related sexual violence at 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. We would be glad to welcome many of you as our guests. In conclusion, allow me to recall the court's critical role in bringing redress to victims and in providing a forum for addressing their grievances. Lending coherence to the court's work with victims continues to be of vital importance. Against this backdrop, I'm glad to inform you that Germany is continuing the consistent practice of voluntary contributions to the Trust Fund for Victims, as well as to the Trust Fund for Family Visits. This year, we will also broaden our assistance to provide access opportunities to the work at the court for talented applicants from all parts of the world, including those who may not have the financial means to undertake a placement at the court. We will do so with our support of the Trust Fund for the Development of Interns and Visiting Professionals, and to the Trust Fund for the Participation of Least Developed Countries or other developing states. Let me conclude, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, by an appeal. Let us all move forward together to make the court even stronger. Thank you.
I thank the delegate from Germany, and I now give the floor to the representative from Uruguay.
Señor vicepresidente de la Asamblea de Estados Partes, autoridades de la Corte, excelencias, distinguidos delegados y representantes de la sociedad civil. En el presente año, la Corte Penal Internacional celebró el 20º aniversario de la entrada en vigor del Estatuto de Roma. Uruguay expresa, una vez más, su firme compromiso con la Corte Penal Internacional en su lucha contra la impunidad de los responsables de los crímenes internacionales más graves y en su labor de prevención de crímenes atroces al ser un tribunal penal internacional de naturaleza permanente. En tal sentido, hemos puesto a disposición nuestra Ley 18.026 del 25 de septiembre de 2006 de cooperación con la Corte Penal Internacional por su carácter integral, dado que recoge las obligaciones jurídicas internacionales de derechos humanos y de derecho internacional humanitario al tipificar los crímenes internacionales, labor que fue hecha con la colaboración de las Naciones Unidas y el Comité Internacional de la Cruz Roja. La misma, además, prevé los mecanismos de cooperación entre nuestras autoridades nacionales y los órganos de la Corte, en su conjunto, así como establece un proceso nacional participativo para nominar a los candidatos o candidatas a juez o fiscal. Por otra parte, Uruguay desea destacar la reciente ratificación por parte del Parlamento Nacional de diversas enmiendas al Estatuto de Roma, relativas a la eliminación del artículo 124 del Estatuto sobre la disposición de transición y a la incorporación de 3 nuevos subpárrafos dentro del artículo 8 sobre crímenes de guerra. Creemos que el próximo año, en el cual se celebrará el 25º aniversario de la firma del Estatuto de Roma, será una clara oportunidad para promover la ratificación de enmiendas al mismo, así como la incorporación de nuevos signatarios al instrumento, a efectos de fortalecer el principio de universalidad del Estatuto. Señor vicepresidente, hoy más que nunca es necesario el apoyo político explícito de todos los Estados parte a la labor independiente e imparcial de la Fiscalía y de la Corte, conforme al Estatuto de Roma, en un contexto multilateral complejo y repleto de desafíos que amenazan la paz y la seguridad internacionales. Es por ello que Uruguay, a más de 20 años de la firma del Tratado de Roma, renueva su vocación multilateral y de respeto del derecho internacional. Señor vicepresidente, en ese mismo espíritu, Uruguay ha participado activamente con miras a contribuir al perfeccionamiento y fortalecimiento del sistema del Estatuto de Roma, además de a su universalización. Uruguay continuará apoyando de manera constructiva el proceso de revisión que debe ser inclusivo con miras a perfeccionar los métodos de trabajo de la Corte Penal Internacional y así aumentar su eficiencia y eficacia dentro del respeto de la independencia judicial y de la oficina de la Fiscalía. Señor vicepresidente, Respecto a la Fiscalía, entendemos que se está buscando promover y garantizar un debido balance de género en los puestos jerárquicos de la misma, así como una mayor diversidad geográfica y representación de los principales sistemas jurídicos para enriquecer el trabajo de la Fiscalía, que debe entender y atender situaciones en contextos culturales muy diversos. En ese sentido, Uruguay también resalta la necesidad de contar con asesores especiales procedentes del Grupo de América Latina y el Caribe, entendiendo que mejorar la diversidad cultural en todos los niveles constituirá una fortaleza para la Fiscalía. Señor Vicepresidente, el año 2023 traerá nuevos desafíos a la labor de la Corte Penal Internacional, previéndose la duplicación del número de juicios y audiencias con respecto al 2022. En ese contexto resulta de vital importancia el apoyo financiero necesario de cada Estado parte, comprometiéndose en casos de retrasos a un plan de pagos a efectos de aumentar la predecibilidad de los flujos financieros y no afectar su desempeño. En este año se inició el proceso de selección de un nuevo secretario de la Corte Penal Internacional. En tal sentido, aprovechamos esta instancia para agradecer la destacada gestión del secretario saliente, Peter Lewis. Con respecto a este proceso, Uruguay reitera la suma importancia del principio de representación geográfica equitativa y de adecuada representación de los principales sistemas jurídicos del mundo, así como la necesidad de preservar la diversidad, el multilingüismo y el balance de género. Señor Vicepresidente, la centralidad de las víctimas es un elemento de suma importancia en el Estatuto de Roma, debiendo asegurarse su participación en los diferentes procedimientos, así como en su derecho a la reparación. En este sentido, destacamos la importante labor del Fondo Fiduciario en beneficio de las víctimas. Este año, como ha sido habitual durante los últimos tiempos, Uruguay ha realizado una contribución voluntaria a este fondo. Saludamos a los miembros salientes y electos y agradecemos también la labor de la Secretaría de la Asamblea de Estados Partes en apoyo a todas las facilitaciones temáticas. Reiteramos nuestro firme compromiso con la labor de la Corte, que tras 20 años de existencia se ha consolidado como una institución indispensable para quienes creen en un mundo regido por reglas de respeto al derecho internacional y por los altos valores perseguidos por el Estatuto de Roma. Muchas gracias, señor Vicepresidente.
Muchas gracias. Now turn to the representative of Andorra.
Monsieur le Vice-président, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, au nom de l'ambassadrice Son Excellence Madame Rabaza, c'est un plaisir et un honneur pour moi de pouvoir m'adresser à vous dans le cadre de la 21e session de l'Assemblée des États parties à la Cour pénale internationale. La principauté d'Andorre, en tant que pays de petite dimension territoriale, doit sa survie à l'existence des règles du système juridique international et au respect de celles-ci. L'Andorre a soutenu la CPI depuis la rédaction du statut de Rome et a appuyé les initiatives destinées à l'améliorer, qu'elles aient été menées par des États parties, proposées par les praticiens ou appelées par la société civile. Par ces actions, l'Andorre souhaite promouvoir et défendre l'état de droit en tant qu'enjeu global pour lequel la coopération internationale et la défense du multilatéralisme sont essentielles. 20 ans après la création de la CPI, et comme l'a justement rappelé le juge-président M. Piotr Hovmanski dans un article publié dans un de nos journaux nationaux en juillet dernier, cette institution reste le meilleur instrument pour juger les responsables des crimes les plus graves qui touchent l'ensemble de la communauté internationale, le meilleur instrument pour lutter contre l'impunité des acteurs et des auteurs, et le meilleur instrument pour apporter protection, assistance et réparation aux victimes. C'est pourquoi l'Andorre reste profondément attachée à la CPI et aux valeurs qu'elle porte. En ce sens, la visite de la ministre des Affaires étrangères, Madame Hubach, à la Cour pénale internationale le 30 mai dernier est le témoignage du profond engagement de mon pays envers la CPI. L'implication de l'Andorre auprès de la CPI se traduit aussi par des actions concrètes telles que la participation aux réunions du réseau ministériel de la Cour pénale internationale lors du débat général de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, ainsi que par le soutien à travers des contributions volontaires annuelles au travail réalisé par le Fonds au profit des victimes, qui assure une réparation et permet aux victimes de retrouver une vie digne. La Principauté d'Andorre continuera à s'engager dans les activités du Fonds en faveur des victimes et se félicite qu'elles intègrent des considérations en faveur de l'égalité de genre et qu'elles se focalisent sur la lutte contre la violence envers les enfants, principes qui font partie des priorités de mon pays. Mon pays est convaincu que la Cour pénale internationale représente une opportunité d'amélioration de la société qu'il faut continuer de soutenir sans faille, surtout au vu des récents événements en Ukraine, et nous saluons ainsi la tâche du procureur dans la collecte des éléments de preuve sur les crimes commis en Ukraine. En ce sens, je tiens à souligner qu'il est indispensable que les éventuels crimes de guerre et crimes contre l'humanité commis en Ukraine soient jugés. La Cour pénale internationale est le fer de lance de la lutte contre l'impunité. Aucune reconstruction de la paix n'est possible si les crimes restent impunis, et nous saluons le travail de la Cour en tant que partie d'un système multilatéral qui a pour vocation de mettre fin à l'impunité, de renforcer l'état de droit, de promouvoir et d'encourager le respect des droits humains, d'asseoir durablement la paix et de promouvoir le développement des États, conformément au droit international et aux buts et principes énoncés dans la Charte des Nations unies. Nous saluons en ce sens la résolution adoptée par l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies le 2 novembre 2022 sur le rapport de la Cour pénale internationale que l'Andorre a coparrainé. Monsieur le vice-président, tous les États parties du statut de Rome sont le maillon d'une chaîne qui nécessite, nous en sommes convaincus, la participation de tous et chacun des États membres des Nations unies. L'objectif d'universalité du statut de Rome doit être poursuivi et par conséquent, nous invitons tous les États non partis à y adhérer. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Je remercie le délégué d'Andorra et je donne la parole. I give the floor to the ambassador of the Netherlands, from South Africa, excuse me.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for giving me the floor. It is my honor to deliver this statement on behalf of South Africa. This year, we are witnessing the world still steadily emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic, and people in most countries have to a large extent resumed their normal lives. However, that respite and renewed optimism which come with these developments have been significantly tempered, not only by the continued economic impact of the pandemic, but also by the devastation and uncertainty caused by the conflict in Ukraine, which is, of course, of particular relevance for the Assembly of States Parties to the Rome Statute, since it engages the mandate of the International Criminal Court. My delegation is encouraged to observe that the court has been able to progress in the execution of its work in the face of these challenges. However, it is important more than ever before that the court should adhere to its mandate as set out in the Rome Statute. While the situation in Ukraine is currently of considerable global interest, and while all atrocity crimes committed during that conflict must be thoroughly investigated and prosecuted, it is crucial that the court and the office of the prosecutor maintain their independence and impartiality. In this regard, from the perspective of applying the resources available to the court, it is important for all the matters the court is seized with to be given priority and due attention. The rule of law, both at the domestic and international level, and full accountability for international crimes must apply equally to all, without fear, favor, or prejudice, whenever and wherever they are committed. South Africa welcomes the generous contributions by a large number of states parties have made on a voluntary basis to the Trust Fund for the Advanced Technology and Specialized Capacity, in response to the call by the prosecutor earlier this year for support to the work of the Office of the Prosecutor. We are particularly encouraged by the intention to apply these funds also to the investigation of crimes involving sexual and gender-based violence, as well as crimes against children. These crimes, as we have stated before, require the court's urgent attention. Mr. Vice President, we commend the progress in the assessment of the recommendations of the independent expert review, which is nearing completion. We are especially encouraged by the fact that throughout the assessment process, states parties have consistently emphasized the importance of the court's independence as well as that of the Office of the Prosecutor. Since South Africa is of the view that the mandate of the review mechanism was never intended to be indefinite, we believe that it is important to agree on a distinct process using existing structures and mechanisms to be put in place to ensure that the recommendations which have been positively assessed and are being implemented are appropriately monitored. This will enable us to harvest the full benefits of the outcomes of the review process, harness the full potential of the court in order to realize our common objective of delivering international criminal justice. Mr. Vice President, since this session will continue with the negotiations on the budget of the court, we wish to commend the constructive manner in which states parties have thus far engaged in the deliberations thereon. While the resource requirements of the court to adequately deliver on its mandate are substantial, the economic situation faced by nearly all state parties, more especially by developing countries, is quite onerous. We believe that all state parties share a commitment to the court and its work, but also that state parties need to show sufficient flexibility and willingness to make compromises as we look to find the best way to capacitate the court with a realistic and workable budget, the current economic circumstances notwithstanding. Mr. Vice President, my delegation also wishes to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Peter Lewis, whose term as Registrar of the Court is coming to an end. The Court and state parties are indebted to him for his sterling contribution to the governance of the organization. As we look forward to the election of a new registrar, South Africa urges that principles of geographic representation and rotation and gender balance be positively taken into account and reflected in the outcomes of that election process. With the issue of geographic representation having been underscored on many occasions in various sessions of this Assembly, we believe that the court can and must, in this process, give practical effect to our common vision of the ICC being a truly representative international organization. We also believe that this election process represents a further and timely opportunity to improve and strengthen the process of ICC elections more generally. Mr. Vice President, we wish to assure you of South Africa's support during this session, and we look forward to improving the performance, efficiency, and effectiveness of the court, which we believe should play a significant role in promoting respect for international law and supporting international peace and stability everywhere around the globe, not least on the African continent. We also wish to take this opportunity, as we have done before, to recognize the role of that civil society has played in the court's establishment and the valuable support it continues to provide to the court to advance the objective of ensuring accountability for the most serious international crimes. Accordingly, we call upon all states parties that have not yet ratified the Rome Statute as amended to nail their colors to the mast without delay as a sign of real commitment to international criminal justice to deal with serious international crimes. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative from South Africa, the ambassador. Thank you so much. Now turn to the representative from Iceland, who is the legal advisor in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Vice President, Your Excellencies, the year 2022 has been a significant year for the International Criminal Court. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Court, we must not lose sight of the reasons why the ICC was created: to establish accountability and provide justice for victims by ending impunity for the gravest international crimes. The Court has made pivotal progress and achievements during these last 20 years. For its contribution to this cause, we express our deep gratitude as we reiterate our strong and continued support for and commitment to the ICC. Iceland would also like to praise Prosecutor Khan for his dedication and hard work towards increasing the Court's outreach and visibility across the continents. Mr. Vice President, the strength of the ICC depends on the reach of its jurisdiction. Thus, we urge all states to ratify the Rome Statute and become states parties. Iceland wishes to underline the ICC's complementary nature and to encourage all states not party to the Rome Statute to reassess their position, as we all share a common goal of ending the impunity of perpetrators of the most heinous crimes and bringing justice to victims throughout all jurisdictions. Iceland stresses the need for consensus on the budget for 2023 so that the Court can continue its important work, and urges all states parties to fulfill their obligation to pay the annual contributions on time, as the Court's workload has risen to unforeseen heights. In August, Iceland responded to the Court's plea for further funding as we provided an additional unearmarked contribution. We encourage states to respond to the Court's request for further funding, as this is an essential part of maintaining the Court's function and its judicial integrity. Iceland acknowledges the importance of the relationship between the ICC and the Security Council. We encourage both bodies to find even more practical solutions to strengthen both their functioning and cooperation, especially in matters in which the Security Council refers cases to the ICC. Speaking of which, Iceland regrets the fact that the Security Council has failed to make full use of the potential to refer situations to the Court for investigation, such as in the case of Syria. Mr. Vice President, the effectiveness of the ICC is contingent on the cooperation of its states parties. Thus, we urge all parties to cooperate fully and effectively in every manner possible, from issuing arrest warrants to enabling the work of human rights defenders. The ICC must be able to fulfill its core purpose of delivering justice to victims. All efforts of the Court should build on a victim-oriented approach. A crucial element of the Court's deliverance of justice is implemented by the Trust Fund for Victims. Iceland is proud and honoured to be making the second contribution to the fund, and we call on all states and legal entities around the world to cooperate and contribute to the fund. Iceland is a dedicated supporter of the Court's efforts to advance accountability for sexual and gender-based crimes. We praise the recent work on the policy on the crime of gender persecution. The development of the policy paper is a fundamental part of the Court's progress to evolve its institutional capacity to investigate and prosecute gender persecution. Mr. Vice President, in the past year, the Court has encountered unprecedented and challenging matters that need to be met head-on by the international community as a whole. Despite the Court's numerous advancements in several areas, we must not forget that there are always opportunities to further improve its functions. The independent expert review was established to improve the performance, efficiency, and effectiveness of the Court. Iceland praises the Court on its response to the review. However, recent issues brought to light by the independent oversight mechanism are deeply worrying, and we encourage the leadership of the Court to respond without any delay. The Court, simply put, needs to be a good place to work for all its staff. Furthermore, we would like to emphasize the importance of implementing changes that reflect the global nature of the Court in matters such as gender balance, equitable geographical distribution, and linguistic diversity. Iceland is supportive of the idea of a permanent vetting mechanism for ICC elections, which we believe can only further strengthen the Court. A step-by-step approach involving the next judicial election on an ad hoc basis could be ideal. To conclude, Iceland thanks the staff of the International Criminal Court for their continued hard work and dedication. The Court has proven to play a vital part in the maintenance of the rule of law, international peace, and security. It is the firm belief of Iceland that the Court and the states parties can build on that success and reach further. I thank you.
I thank the representative from Iceland, and I give the floor to the ambassador of Bangladesh to the Netherlands.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our warm congratulations to Madam President and the Bureau. Our appreciation to all principals of the Court for the exemplary works. Our tribute especially to Registrar Peter Lewis for his exemplary contribution and dedication. Mr. Vice President, this July ICC turned 21. Next year marks the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute. Bangladesh all along looks at the Court to stand as the most resolute legal institution in providing justice to the victims. As a manifestation of Bangladesh's commitment to global peace and justice, as early as in 1999, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina mooted the culture of peace resolution in the UNGA. In this regard, let me flag a particular aspect, Mr. Vice President. Bangladesh withstood a gruesome genocide during our War of Liberation in 1971. Our history, sacrifice, and endurance as a victim of genocide led us to open our borders to children, women, men from northern Rakhine state in Myanmar in August 2017. 5 years on, Bangladesh hosts 1.2 million Rohingya people. Sadly enough, in a world of competing issues and complex geopolitics, the interest of a brutal atrocity in modern history looks declining. Long-standing presence of Rohingya people is destabilizing society and economy in Bangladesh, and even greater neighborhood. While people in Bangladesh show empathy, there is a growing sense among our people that Bangladesh is left alone to deal with these stateless Rohingyas. Bangladesh has done far more than she could. Beyond humanitarian support, the Rohingyas foremost need political support. If the world is to ask for justice for the Rohingya people, all matters related to their dignity, rights in Myanmar must be addressed to pave ways for sustainable return. In the midst of volatilities confronting international community, international justice mechanisms must not ignore the Rohingya people. We commend the OTP for the progress made on the investigation. Also note the budgetary allocation that has been made. Bangladesh is providing effective cooperation to the Court and the OTP on the investigation process. Completion of the investigation on the case is crucial for the Rohingya people, even beyond their safe, orderly, dignified return to their homeland, Myanmar. Bangladesh would urge all member states of the Rome Statute to lend their support for justice and accountability for Rohingyas. And on that score, I would welcome all of you to join a side event on Friday morning. In that context, we note the engagements of the Trust Fund for Victims towards the survivors. Bangladesh had made a modest contribution to the fund within her limits. State parties need to make vigorous contribution to the fund in providing reparative justice to the victims and survivors. We particularly encourage the TFV leadership to visit Bangladesh to see the conditions of the Rohingyas on the ground and initiate assistance program soonest. Mr. Vice President, let me underline certain aspects on the Court's functioning. Equitable geographic representation, particularly from the developing countries, is key to demonstrate the Court's true international character. The registry may develop a mechanism to encourage potential candidates from the developing countries for appointment as JPOs and interns, which should help accomplish complementarity. In our collective aim to secure the universality of Rome Statute, the Court may creatively engage with diverse stakeholders in the non-member states. Sustained engagements can gradually generate interest, convince people of the values of universal imperative of justice and accountability, and eventually address perceptions or misperceptions or apprehensions that may exist. We believe this should be a collective investment in our shared future. The Court had the most engaging year dealing with the highest number of open situations and several active investigations ongoing. My delegation reiterates our confidence in the leadership of Prosecutor Khan and the OTP. Listening to so many ministers and delegations since yesterday, this Assembly needs to unequivocally lend its support with predictable resources in the Court's proposed budget. We must move from the spectre of zero nominal growth and factor in inflation in the increase in budget, steadily rising demand on the Court, and the vision laid by the prosecutor and the imperative for the Court to firmly and timely deliver justice and accountability. Bangladesh appreciates the work of the review mechanism and applaud its co-facilitators. As an ad country focal point, Bangladesh was engaged throughout the process, leading to the adoption of the Comprehensive Action Plan, and notes the progress made in the plan's implementation. We hope the review mechanism would continue to work in accordance with the mandate given. Mr. Vice President, my delegation recognizes the constructive works of the CICC. We view their works in bringing the court, states parties, civil society closer, thus contributing towards effective deliberations of the court. In closing, Bangladesh values ICC as a living institution of the future, in rediscovering critical import of justice and accountability, in ensuring global peace and stability, and in establishing justice and rule-based global development as global commons. Let this be our collective quest to vindicate justice beyond borders. I thank you.
I thank the ambassador from Bangladesh, and I give the floor now to the representative, the Charge of the Republic of Korea.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to join you in person at this year's Assembly of States Parties since the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to President and Vice President of the Assembly, as well as to the team of the Bureau, the working groups, and the Secretariat of the Assembly for all the excellent work in preparing for this 21st session. My delegation also commends the joint effort of the Presidency, the Chambers, the Office of the Prosecutors, and the Registry to help end the impunity for perpetrators of the most serious crimes of concern to the international community. Korea recognized that the court has made meaningful progress across its prosecutorial and judicial activities this year, with a record number of 5 cases on trial and 3 new investigations opened in the Philippines, Venezuela, and Ukraine. I'm convinced that with your accomplished leadership, you will guide this session to a successful outcome. Mr. Vice President, my delegation welcomes the continued efforts of the state parties, the court, and other stakeholders to actively engage in assessing and monitoring the implementation of the recommendation of the independent expert review to strengthen the ICC and the Rome Statute system. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the review mechanism with its 2 state party representatives and 3 ad country focal points for the very intensive work undertaken so far, while always observing the principle of transparency and inclusivity in the exercise of its mandate. As the assessment phase nears completion and the review mechanism's mandate may come to a formal end next year, the key question is what comes next to consolidate our progress and continues to further improve. In this regard, my delegation looks forward to the commemorative event for the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute, to be held at the UN headquarters in July 2023, where we will take stock of what has been accomplished and identify the way forward after the conclusion of the review mechanism. My delegation reconfirms its strong commitment to continued and full engagement for the implementation of the IER recommendation. Mr. Vice President, my delegation believes the state parties should elect the best possible judges on the basis of merit and experience in accordance with the Rome Statute and next year's Assembly to ensure the court will be able to meet its current and future challenges. Korea is pleased to have announced the candidacy of Mr. Gi Bong-paek for election as a judge of the court. Mr. Paek has established competence in criminal laws and procedure, and over 30 years of experience both as a prosecutor and attorney in criminal proceedings. He is a person of high moral character and impartiality and integrity, who meets the qualification required to be a judge in the Rome Statute and for appointment to the highest judicial offices in Korea. Korea looks forward to introducing him to as many of you as possible, both here at the Assembly and over the coming months. Mr. Vice President, Korea believes the wider participation of states in the Rome Statute will undoubtedly lead to a strong support for the court by reinforcing the independent system of international criminal justice to fight impunity and prevent the gravest crimes under international law. In this regard, through the Universality Working Group, Korea, together with the Netherlands, has actively contributed to the effort to promote as far as possible the universality and full implementation of the Rome Statute. By reaching out to non-state parties and encouraging their ratification of the Rome Statute. In May 2022, the focal points, together with the ICC and civil society organizations, hosted a high-level seminar in Brussels aimed at states that are not party to the statute and that have embassies in Brussels. In July 2022, Korea organized a luncheon meeting in Seoul to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Rome Statute. Korea will continue to strengthen this effort, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. Mr. Vice President, equitable geographical distribution benefits the court by ensuring a diversity of perspective, which internally increases creativity in the work environment and extremely remains crucial to address perception challenges and advance the universality of the Rome Statute. Korea notes with concern that there has been a persistent and chronic imbalance of geographical representation in the recruitment of ICC staff, to the detriment of certain countries and regions, particularly the Asia-Pacific region. We recognize the various actions taken by the registry to address this situation, such as the participation of human resource staff in all stages of the recruitment process to ensure the consideration of diversity and geographical representation. However, we call upon the court and assembly to redouble their effort to pay more attention to the issue of underrepresentation and to rectify the geographical imbalance at the earliest possible time. Mr. Vice President, Korea takes note of the Budget and Finance Committee's repeated concerns with the liquidity issues, one of the greatest challenges the court is now facing. In order for the court to fulfill its important mandate under the Rome Statute, we strongly encourage all state parties to make timely payment of the assessed contribution in full, according to their obligation under the Rome Statute. Mr. Vice President, my delegation highly values the role of the Trust Fund for Victims. I believe that fund has an important mandate to deliver restorative justice to victims and affected community. In contributing this initiative, Korea has been making annual voluntary contributions to the Trust Fund for Victims since 2010 and will continue to do so. Mr. Vice President, this assembly marks a defining moment for the ICC. With the full support for the court by all state parties, the ICC will be able to carry out its important mandate of ensuring justice for the victims of the most serious crime. Korea reaffirms its deepest commitment to and staunch support for the activities of the ICC. I would like to bring my remarks to a close by once again expressing my sincere gratitude to Madam President and Mr. Vice President for the preparation for this assembly. I look forward to meaningful, productive discussion on all these important matters. Thank you so much.
I thank the representative from Korea, and I give the floor now to the ambassador of Japan.
Mr. Vice President, on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the entry into force of the Roma Statute, the expectations of the international community for the ICC are greater than ever. Japan appreciates the leadership of the President, the prosecutor, and the registrar in meeting these expectations. At the same time, there is unprecedented attention for the ICC within the world, so it is crucial that the court gives true meaning to the one court principle. Mr. Vice President, in order to intensify the fight against impunity and make the ICC's activities sustainable, it is of paramount importance to promote the universality of the ICC. On this score, Japan applauds President Hofmansky for his outreach initiatives. During President Hofmansky's recent meetings in Japan with Prime Minister Kishida, Foreign Minister Hayashi, and others, Japan and the court decided to jointly strive for wider membership in the Asia-Pacific region. Japan will step up our efforts in this endeavor. Mr. Vice President, Japan welcomes the reorganization of the Office of the Prosecutor that has been underway since Prosecutor Khan took office, and is counting on his leadership to deliver on necessary reforms. Alongside the reorganization, the OTP deserves credit for addressing various situations appropriately, including the situation in Ukraine, which Japan referred to the court. Against this backdrop, Japan has not only dispatched legal practitioners to the OTP with the cost borne by the Japanese side, but has been also paying a due consideration on the financial front. The initial proposed budget presented in July requested an unprecedented increase over the previous year. It is the basic position of Japan that the budget should have zero nominal growth. Japan has had massive constraints at home in recent years, and yet Japan has seriously considered such a large budget hike in order to support the ICC's activity. I am confident that many other state parties are confronted with such challenging situations. With this in mind, it is our hope that OTP will produce tangible results while fully recognizing the priority should be given to the selection of cases within the finite resource or allocation. Mr. Vice President, in the registry, reforms have been made steady progress. This is notably reflected by the staff survey concerning work environment, in which the organ scored the highest in the court was the registry. The ICC in its entirety has overcome unprecedented challenges over the past few years. All these could not be achieved without the efforts of Registrar Peter Luis. Since this is Mr. Luis' last ASP, I would like to mention his accomplishment and place them on record. In the coming year, a new registrar will be elected. While Japan respects the judge's decision, I would like to share Japan's views on the qualifications required of the next registrar. First is experience and competence in the management of international organizations, as well as the ability to remain on top of discussions surrounding the IER recommendations, as the ICC continues to be in the middle of the comprehensive review. Second is sufficient experience in crisis management, given that the registrar plays the lead role in ensuring business continuity in times of serious crisis affecting both operations at the seat of the court and in the country offices. Third is the understanding of the position of the state parties as donors and competence in eliciting their cooperation, which should not be taken for granted. Furthermore, in view of the present serious cash flow problems, the registrar should be able to ensure early payment of assessed contributions from state parties, including those in arrears. To sum up, the next registrar should be someone who can evolve the registry and continue improvement of work, Kaizen in Japanese, building on the foundation led by Mr. Luis. Last but not least, let me reaffirm Japan's continuous commitment to the Trust Fund for Victims. This year, coordination for a voluntary contribution to the TFV was made extremely difficult due to the budget surge. However, I am pleased to announce that Japan will make an additional contribution to the TFV next year. Thank you.
I thank the ambassador from Japan and give the floor to the representative of Australia, who is in the international law branch of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
Mr. Vice President, Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to begin by paying tribute to Peter Lewis for his distinguished service over many years as Registrar, particularly at a time when the Court has had to manage a significant workload as well as the unique challenges presented by COVID-19. Australia has been a steadfast supporter of the Court since its establishment 20 years ago, and of its vital role in holding perpetrators to account for the most serious international crimes. We express our appreciation for the Court's continued commitment to its mandate over the course of the year. We are encouraged to see that the Court held 5 trials this year, more than double the number held last year, and that it is expected to hold at least 3 trials in 2023. Mr. Vice President, at this pivotal time, it is important that the Court has sufficient resources to continue its fight against impunity. Australia acknowledges the costs associated with the Court's increased workload and supports an appropriate budget increase to enable the Court to deliver on its core mandate. We also encourage the Court to continue to find ways to work effectively and efficiently within the reality of finite resources. States parties must also address the matter of arrears, which impacts the liquidity issues facing the Court. We must not allow this to hinder the Court in delivering on its core mandate, and urge all states parties to pay their assessed contributions on time and in full. Mr. Vice President, as co-focal point on complementarity since 2017, with Romania and now with Uganda, Australia would like to thank the Court and states parties for their continued engagement on this critical issue. The principle of complementarity is fundamental to the Court's mandate as a court of last resort in investigating and prosecuting serious international crimes. We look forward to facilitating ongoing dialogue on complementarity, as well as to continuing our work as co-focal point to support the Court's survivor-centred approach to accountability for sexual and gender-based crimes. Mr. Vice President, Australia was pleased to join with 42 other states parties in referring the situation in Ukraine to the prosecutor. This referral demonstrates the confidence Australia has in the court in ensuring accountability for the most serious international crimes. The atrocities committed by Russia in the context of its illegal, unlawful, and immoral aggression against Ukraine demonstrate the importance of an independent and impartial international court in combating impunity and upholding the rules-based order. Mr. Vice President, as we reflect on the accomplishments and lessons of the past 20 years, we underscore the importance of continued implementation of the reforms recommended by the independent expert review. Australia commends the Court and States Parties on their efforts in this regard. We look forward to working with you to ensure the Court is best placed to fulfil its important role in pursuing accountability. Thank you.
I thank the representative from Australia and give the floor to the representative from Canada, who is the Director General and Deputy Legal Advisor of Global Affairs Canada.
Mr. Vice President, for 20 years, the Court's value in the fight against impunity for the most serious international crimes has been indisputable. In light of the growing number of challenges facing the global system, the importance of its role for the future seems equally clear to us. The Court forms one of the pillars of the rules-based international order, and Canada praises its continued efforts to strengthen respect for the rule of law and ensure justice for victims. Over the past year, the Court has reached a new high, both in its judicial and prosecutorial activities, which includes 5 trials in progress and 17 ongoing investigations. Among the most recently instituted investigations is the situation in Ukraine, which saw an unprecedented 43 states parties, Canada among them, referring the situation to the prosecutor in light of the escalating crisis in Ukraine caused by Russia's illegal invasion. While welcoming the ongoing work of the Court in fulfilling its essential role in pursuing accountability and bringing justice to victims for the gravest of international crimes, we note, however, that equal access to justice for all victims cannot be achieved without universal ratification and full national implementation of the Rome Statute. To fill this void, we reiterate our call for all non-states parties to ratify the Rome Statute, which will strengthen international criminal justice, combat impunity, and help to deter future crimes, thus allowing victims who currently are bereft of the Court's protection to obtain justice. In the same vein, Canada remains concerned by the 14 arrest warrants that remain outstanding. We therefore also reiterate our call to states to cooperate and give effect to these arrest warrants so that the Court may fulfill its mandate and ensure comprehensive accountability while respecting the right to a fair trial. Mr. Vice President, as we benefit from renewed attention on the critical role of the Court and support for accountability, we must build on this momentum to enable the Court to effectively and consistently deliver on its mandate. Unfortunately, the Court's ability to fulfill this mandate is hampered when states parties do not pay their assessed contributions in full and on time. Indeed, the Court's persistent liquidity issues cannot be adequately addressed without the full and proper payment of contributions by states parties that are currently in arrears. If this issue is left unaddressed, a substantial budget increase this year may cause the situation to deteriorate further. There is thus a growing and pressing need for the liquidity situation of the Court to be corrected, and we call upon those states in arrears to pay their contributions according to their obligations under the Rome Statute. To help address the Court's budgetary shortfalls and allow it to continue its operations, Canada has again provided, for the 3rd year in a row, the majority of its assessed contributions to the Court in advance for the coming year. Nonetheless, this is not a sustainable avenue for the proper functioning of the Court. Canada has also been pleased to provide voluntary contributions in support of the court's efforts this year, including by increasing our deployments from 3 to 10 police officers and by providing $2 million to the ICC Trust Fund to investigate sexual and gender-based crimes and crimes against children. However, relying on the granting of voluntary contributions to fund activities that should be included in the regular budget is also not sustainable, even if they demonstrate a strong commitment to justice. With a view to the longer-term sustainability of the court, Canada will continue to support discussions based on the recommendations in the Independent Experts Review Report on ways to strengthen the functioning of the court and its effectiveness in delivering justice. It is important that these discussions address ways to further strengthen the court's ability to allocate its resources efficiently and effectively, and to encourage the payment of contributions by states on time and in full. Monsieur le Vice-président, nous sommes heureux de constater une plus grande diversité au sein de la Cour et que les efforts se poursuivent en ce sens avec le lancement de la stratégie sur l'égalité des genres et la clôture sur le lieu de travail de la Cour pénale internationale. Les récentes élections de Mme Khan et M. Nyang en tant que procureur adjoint est un pas positif qui reflète la diversité géographique de genre et des principaux systèmes juridiques du monde, renforçant ainsi le fonctionnement de la Cour. Nous espérons que l'élection prochaine du greffier continue dans cette voie. Il convient de souligner que le travail du Fonds au profit des victimes a également atteint un niveau d'activité sans précédent, avec mise en œuvre de procédures de réparation dans 5 affaires, tentant de réparer les préjudices subis par 3 000 victimes et 20 projets d'assistance en cours, bénéficiant directement à près de 100 000 personnes. Le Canada est fier de soutenir le travail du Fonds Mali par une contribution de $4 millions. Finally, we would like to take this opportunity to highlight the importance of supporting those who work to achieve accountability and promote and protect universal human rights. We continue to commend the critical role of civil society organizations, as we all benefit from their invaluable contribution in raising global awareness of the role of the court, thereby supporting the work of the court and helping deliver justice to victims. On behalf of the Government of Canada, please allow me to recognize and express our deep appreciation to Mr. Lewis for his years of leadership in his role as Registrar. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
I thank the representative from Canada and call on the ambassador of Panama to the Netherlands.
Señor Vicepresidente, sean estas mis primeras líneas para felicitar a la presidenta, señora Silvia Fernández de Gurmendi, y reconocer la ardua labor que ha venido ejerciendo durante este año en la conducción de los trabajos de la Asamblea. La delegación de Panamá reconoce la labor incansable ante los desafíos que se han presentado a lo largo del año. Participamos en este periodo de sesiones con la voluntad de apoyar esta gestión en los trabajos que se desarrollan en el 21º periodo de la Asamblea, confiando en que bajo el liderazgo actual se alcanzarán los mejores resultados. Resaltamos la labor realizada por los vicepresidentes en La Haya y en Nueva York, embajadora Caterina Sakonzova y el embajador Bob Ray, así como del secretario de esta Asamblea, señor Renan Villasís, quienes han dedicado su tiempo con profesionalismo y tenacidad para llevar adelante esta convocatoria a fin de abordar una agenda temática completa. Al señor presidente de la Corte, su excelencia juez Piotr Hofmansky, a su excelencia el señor fiscal Karim Khan y al señor secretario Peter Lewis, así como también a todo el personal de este tribunal, extendemos los saludos y agradecimiento por ser parte de este gran equipo. Señor Vicepresidente, la República de Panamá desea reafirmar su compromiso con el Estatuto de Roma y el respaldo a la Corte Penal Internacional en aras de que sean impulsados los esfuerzos necesarios para lograr el mejor entendimiento y los objetivos en esta Asamblea y en cada una de las jornadas que nos ocupan de manera cotidiana para resguardar el mejor desempeño del sistema penal internacional. Estamos a un año de conmemorar los 25 años desde que se materializó la iniciativa sobre la creación de una jurisdicción internacional en materia penal con el Estatuto de Roma en julio de 1998, posteriormente con su entrada en vigor el 1 de julio de 2002. Este proceso se complementa con su ampliación en la cobertura de los crímenes de genocidio, lesa humanidad y crimen de agresión tras la conferencia de revisión en Kampala. Durante los últimos años, la Corte ha venido enfrentando múltiples desafíos, pero el compromiso de los Estados partes del Estatuto de Roma y de todos los involucrados en los diferentes aspectos de su funcionamiento ha hecho posible avanzar en los propósitos. Los 123 Estados partes del Estatuto de Roma estamos llamados a contribuir desde nuestra propia perspectiva al plan estratégico de la Corte Penal Internacional y a unir esfuerzos para promover la universalidad, a fortalecer la complementariedad y a explorar formas innovadoras para la cooperación. La complementariedad es una herramienta para fortalecer las capacidades nacionales para hacer frente a los compromisos del Estado. Reconocemos en el proceso de revisión las recomendaciones sobre complementariedad que han sido discutidas ampliamente dentro del contexto de los mecanismos de facilitación. Será importante dar un paso más e intentar materializar aquellas evaluadas positivamente en 2023. La cooperación es parte fundamental para lograr objetivos específicos con la Corte, en particular en las áreas de implementación del marco constitucional y legislativo, ejecución de sentencias judiciales y ejecución de órdenes de detención. Es la vía que nos permite mejorar la implementación de nuestros compromisos con el Estatuto de Roma y por ello es imperante explorar constantemente los espacios de diálogo para la identificación de medidas adicionales que complementan las vías de cooperación existentes. Señor Vicepresidente, se aproxima la elección del nuevo secretario de la Corte y la República de Panamá valora todos los esfuerzos realizados para enriquecer el proceso de selección de los mejores candidatos, destacando la importancia de nominar y elegir a los profesionales mejor calificados y competentes, con incuestionable carácter moral, imparcialidad e integridad. Las consideraciones respecto a la presentación geográfica y balance de género para que las mujeres tengan acceso a posiciones directivas, así como la visión de contar con los distintos sistemas legales del mundo, han sido relevantes para la elaboración del documento sobre las recomendaciones relativo a la elección de secretario de la Corte. La República de Panamá comparte la preocupación sobre la subrepresentación de GRULAC en la composición de personal en la Corte Penal Internacional. Este déficit es un tema que debe ser abordado con urgencia a fin de buscar mecanismos efectivos que conllevan a mejorar e incrementar la participación de representantes de nuestro grupo regional en la estructura de este tribunal. Es importante reconocer el trabajo realizado durante el año 2022. El trabajo de los facilitadores y puntos focales en los diversos grupos requiere ser destacado. Han invertido de manera profesional su tiempo para consolidar y consensuar con éxito cada uno de los temas encomendados. Extendemos un especial reconocimiento a nuestros colegas del GRULAC, a los embajadores de Chile, Jaime Moscoso, Costa Rica, Arnoldo Brenes y El Salvador, Carmen Gallardo. En la mesa de la Asamblea de los Estados partes, las delegaciones del GRULAC han sido muy activas y distinguimos la participación de las delegaciones de Argentina, Brasil, Ecuador y México que nos representan y en quienes depositamos confianza en la conducción de las decisiones. Resaltamos la labor que realiza la señora Minerva Tavares Mirabal de la República Dominicana como presidenta del Fondo Fiduciario en Defensa de las Víctimas de Crímenes Atroces. En relación con el presupuesto para la vigencia 2023, la República de Panamá reconoce las necesidades financieras de la Corte para el desempeño de las operaciones del organismo y valora el trabajo realizado por el Comité de Presupuesto y Finanzas en el proceso de revisión, así como sus recomendaciones. Panamá toma nota del esfuerzo de la Corte durante el periodo actual en el manejo prudente de los recursos asignados, destacando la implementación de modalidades que generaron ahorros en algunos rubros. Sin embargo, es prudente reflexionar sobre la situación económica global resultado de la pandemia del COVID-19 y de otros factores a nivel mundial que afectan a todos los Estados parte. En este contexto, respaldamos una racionalización y redistribución de los recursos asignados con la finalidad de optimizar el uso y promover la política de ahorro de acuerdo a las posibilidades reales. Finalmente, la Delegación de Panamá respalda de manera permanente el rol que cumple la Corte en la defensa del Estado de Derecho internacional, el combate a la impunidad y la provisión de reparaciones a las víctimas de esos crímenes. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias to the ambassador. And now give the floor to the representative, the ambassador from Romania.
Mr. Vice President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Romania aligns itself with a statement delivered on behalf of the European Union and its member states and would like to make the following additional points in its national capacity. 20 years ago, the International Criminal Court started its work as a first permanent criminal court dealing with the most egregious crimes that shook the human consciousness. We were more than a community of states united around a noble ideal of justice. We became a community united around a functional system, an actual tool that made accountability the rule and gave victims the justice they deserved and expect. We find ourselves now at a time when the court is more challenged than ever, since core international crimes continue to be perpetrated in many parts of the world. Let me recall in this regard what is happening in my country's immediate vicinity, where an illegal, unjustified and unprovoked war of aggression is being waged by the Russian Federation against Ukraine. This war continues to produce dramatic consequences and horrors in terms of human suffering. Innocent people's lives are lost following heinous attacks in clear defiance of the basic norms of international humanitarian law. Against this background, the court is facing an unprecedented increase in its activity, reflected also in the high number of cases, situations and investigations. In such complex times, it is our duty to reaffirm our unwavering support for the ICC, to engage in a constructive dialogue that can help the organs of the court deliver their tasks and tackle in an efficient manner the challenges that are inherent to the functionality of such a complex jurisdictional system. In this context, allow me to express our gratitude to the President of the Court, the prosecutor and the deputy prosecutors for their tireless efforts during this last year. We are also thankful to the Registrar of the Court, Mr. Peter Lewis, for his significant contribution to ensuring the efficiency of the Court. Mr. Vice President, allow me to reaffirm Romania's full trust in the independent and impartial ability of the International Criminal Court to bring justice in all situations under its consideration. Romania is aware that functionality and efficiency are dependent upon resources, including financial and human ones. States parties must fulfill their financial commitments to the court by making contributions to the regular budget in full and on time and avoiding arrears. We find this year's arrears situation particularly worrying, at a moment when the court is preparing for a very intense judicial activity in 2023. Voluntary contributions can also make an important impact. We have contributed to the Trust Fund for Victims, and we have promptly responded to the prosecutor's appeal made earlier this year for additional financial resources in order that the activity engaged by his office not be hampered. We are in a dialogue with the court on the possibility to second experts within the Office of the Prosecutor in those fields identified as a priority by his office. All of our efforts have fully complied with the principle and imperative of the independence of the court. At the same time, Romania continues to extend its support to the ongoing review process of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute system. We commend the progress made so far in this endeavor to make the court more efficient. It is important to maintain a good momentum and finalize the assessment of the recommendations of the independent experts in order to move to the implementation phase, while preserving the integrity of the founding treaty and taking into account the principle of judicial and prosecutorial independence. Addressing the impunity gap for the most serious crimes by the International Criminal Court cannot be fulfilled without state cooperation. States play a significant role in the achievement of international justice. They must adopt measures to ensure full and prompt cooperation with the court. We should remain committed to strengthening the cooperation regime by lending the court the necessary assistance to carry out its work efficiently. Let us recall that by virtue of the principle of complementarity, the ICC serves only as a court of last resort, and that the most adequate manner to combat impunity relates to the capacity of the national jurisdictional systems to investigate mass atrocities. The existence of the court has been an important incentive for passing relevant domestic legislation and boosting the capacity of national jurisdictions to exercise their competence in this regard. Promoting the universality of the court's founding treaty should remain a long-term goal to be pursued jointly by the court and the states parties as an expression of our commitment to international law and to peace and security. We should also continue to strive to avoid the fragmentation of the Rome Statute regime by ratifying its amendments. This year, Romania has ratified all the amendments to Article 8 of the statute. To conclude, Romania will continue to support the court's vital role in the fight against impunity and in providing assistance and reparations to victims of mass atrocities. The ICC remains an essential instrument in promoting the culture of accountability at the global level and in consolidating the trust that peace and stability are also rooted in justice. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
I thank the ambassador from Romania, and I give the floor to the representative of the government of Malawi.
Mr. Vice President, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, allow me at the outset to congratulate you, Mr. Vice President, for your able leadership in steering the proceedings of this session. Let me assure you of my delegation's cooperation and support in our deliberations. Mr. Vice President, the ASP21 is being held at the time when the world is still recovering from the reeling effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted the normal functioning of all sectors of life, and the International Criminal Court was not spared. I am glad to note that this session is being held in person and that the court also has returned to normalcy with its work, as the report of the Office of the Prosecutor and the President of the Court can attest. The court has continued to be the beacon of the fight against impunity for atrocity crimes that shock the conscience of humankind. These are war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. As we celebrate 20 years of its existence, we need not lose sight of the principle of complementarity upon which the Rome Statute system is premised. Mr. Vice President, the year 2022 has registered a lot of progress in a number of initiatives taking shape to strengthen the Rome Statute system and improve its efficiency. For instance, the first ever comprehensive review of the court in its 20 years of existence, undertaken by a panel of independent experts, continues to be assessed by member states, and some of the recommendations have already been approved. The review of the functioning of the Rome Statute system came at an opportune time and may contribute to the universality if desired results are attained. Malawi welcomes the recommendations of the independent experts and their favorable assessment by member states and all stakeholders. In that context, Malawi looks forward to further deliberations on the remaining recommendations and their eventual implementation. Mr. Vice President, Malawi believes that an important factor for the proper functioning of the court is the staffing modalities of the OTP and how the Deputy Registrar and other officials are elected. It is important and pleasing to note that the election of the Registrar will be conducted bearing in mind the lessons learned from the elections of the Deputy Prosecutors and the previous election of judges. Malawi supports the initiative to establish a permanent vetting process and the need to respect the principle of equitable geographical representation and gender balance, while also recognizing rotation as a tool in all the staffing requirements of the Rome, if the Rome statute system is to remain a pillar in the fight against impunity for atrocity crimes. Mr. Vice President, Malawi remains a strong supporter of the ICC and recognizes that the court still faces pressures which are causing difficulties for it to properly carry out its mandate. Political sanctions against the court and its staff still remain a possibility, and Malawi therefore supports the need to deal decisively with the threat and use of such sanctions. Also, the financial liquidity concerns continue to affect the productivity of the court. The assessed contributions constitute the bulk of resources of which the court relies on. As a state party committed to international criminal justice, Malawi has paid in full its assessed contributions for the year 2022 and urges other states that have not yet done so to consider paying their contributions in full and on time. Mr. Vice President, in conclusion, I wish to reiterate my delegation's commitment to constructively engage for the successful outcomes of this session. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative from Malawi, and I'd like to thank all the speakers for your statements presented during the general debate agenda item. We're going to continue this afternoon, and we will continue with a speaker starting at 3 o'clock, who will be the first President of the Supreme Court of Madagascar. And so we'll start at 3 and continue through until 6. But I wonder if I could just have a couple of moments, and I'd ask the indulgence of the interpreters to allow me to return to consideration of agenda item number 5. As stated by the President of the Assembly yesterday, in accordance with Rule 25 of the Rules of Procedure, a Credentials Committee consisting of representatives of 9 states parties shall be appointed at the beginning of each session on the proposal of the President. As you may recall, yesterday it was decided that the Credentials Committee would consist of the following states: Bulgaria, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Germany, Japan, and Norway. I am pleased to announce that we have received three nominations, and I therefore propose that the following states shall also be appointed to the Credentials Committee: Bangladesh, Kenya, and South Africa. May I take it that the Assembly agrees to proceed accordingly? It is so decided. We thus have a full membership of the Credentials Committee: Bangladesh, Bulgaria, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Germany, Japan, Kenya, Norway, and South Africa. Once again, thanks to the interpreters for their work today and for allowing us to go a little bit over time. And I would hope that we can get through the rest of the speakers by 6, but I would remind you that the length of speeches varied from 4 minutes, for which we give you full congratulations, to something in the order of 13 minutes. I'm not naming any names, but we really would like it if people could stick to the 5-minute number. It makes it easier for us and easier for all of you, and it is the politeness of things that allow us to continue to do our work. So I'll leave it at that, but look forward to seeing you all at 3 o'clock, where we will hear first from the President of the Supreme Court of Madagascar. Thank you so much. go. No accidents, no terrible